Chapter 1340. Aya. When the Chuanjin people saw that their bandit leader was alive again, they couldn't help but wonder, "You didn't die just now." "Nonsense." Wuji patted the dirt off his body and said, "Do you think my resurrection skill can only be used on you?" After saying that, Wuji looked around and asked everyone, "The boss is dead?" "Dead." Everyone nodded. "Would it drop?" Wuji asked anxiously. Everyone pointed at Wuji's feet and said, "It's right beside you. Can't you see for yourself?" "Damn, you didn't have time to pick up the equipment." Wuji turned around excitedly and saw Zoro's remains at his feet. He picked it up excitedly. First, Wuji saw a crimson skill book. Wuji picked it up and glanced at it. He then sent the attributes to the guild channel. Burning Flame Steps, Skill Book. Uses to learn the rare Grandmaster of Combat skill, Burning Flame Steps. Required profession, Grandmaster of Combat. Huh? Seeing the attributes of this skill book, everyone was stunned. According to the game settings of Rebirth, the items dropped by the boss were related to the player's profession. Zoro was a true warrior profession. From the moment he appeared until he was killed, he didn't use any skills of other professions. Why did a Grandmaster of Combat skill book drop? Could it be because this kid killed Kakujio Naruto, so he took over Naruto's role? Of course, everyone was only curious about the origin of this skill book. The ownership of the skill was what everyone was most concerned about. From the skill name, it wasn't hard to see that this skill was obviously a fire attribute skill. In Rebirth, any skill with an attribute attack would have a certain amount of additional magic attribute damage. It was very strong. For example, Flaming Tornado Kick was the strongest AoE damage of the monk profession. To Place One's Pride saw this skill book and drooled on the ground. But it was obvious that To Place One's Pride was thinking too much. Not to mention that this kid had been instantly sent back to the city and left the team. Even if he was there, with Wang Yu there, he wouldn't be able to choose first. Clashing classes was not scary, but whoever was the noob would be embarrassed. To Place One's Pride was filled with regret as he watched Wang Yu take the skill book away. Why did he choose such a hopeless class? After receiving the skill book, Wang Yu casually patted it. The skill book turned into a white light and entered Wang Yu's body. System notification. You have learned the rare skill, Burning Flame Steps. Uncle Nyo. To Place One's Pride impatiently shouted in the guild channel. Even if he couldn't get it, he had to look at how much he had lost. This was the nature of everyone, and To Place One's Pride was no exception. Wang was a good-tempered person. Since he had received the skill, of course, Wang Yu wouldn't let others see it. He smiled and sent the skill's attributes to the guild channel. Burning Flame Steps, rare skill. Summons Hellfire to wrap around both feet, reducing all skill cooldowns and stun duration. At the same time, increases the damage taken by the target and stun the target. In the state of Burning Flame Steps, all attacks are of the fire attribute, dealing splash damage to surrounding enemies. The flames on the ground can also deal burn damage to the target. F***CK. F***CK. To Place One's Pride cursed after seeing the attributes of Burning Flame Steps. He was so depressed that tears flowed out his eyes. Skills were the same as weapons and equipment. The price and level were objective factors. Whether or not the skill matched the attributes of the player's class was the most important. A Grandmaster of Combat was not a very strong class. Their attack and defense were both average. The only thing special about them was that their skill cooldowns and stun duration were extremely short, allowing them to perform a variety of combo attacks. Apart from the fire attribute bonus of Burning Flame Steps, this skill not only reduced skill cooldowns and stun duration, but also increased the damage taken by the target and stun duration. Although it was only a buff skill, it was definitely a godly skill for a Grandmaster of Combat. What was the most painful thing in the world? Watching a godly skill fall into the hands of others was the most painful thing. To Place One's Pride had tears in his eyes. He bit the corner of his shirt and cried out, "Uncle Nyo, I hate you." Wang Yu couldn't bear to see the child in such pain. He quickly comforted him, "Don't cry, don't cry. If there are more Grandmaster of Combat items later, you can choose first." "Hey!" Hearing Wang Yu's words, Wuji chuckled. "The next item really is a Grandmaster of Combat item. As he spoke, Wuji threw out another scroll. MMA Class Change Scroll, Rare Item. A precious item that records the hidden subclass Sanda Class Change Method. F*CK. Seeing the scroll that Wuji took out, everyone couldn't help but exclaim, "Another class change item." Although the hidden subclass was not as rare as the hero class, it was not something that could be found on the streets. It was already extremely difficult for a normal person to obtain a class change item. Who would have thought that in such a short time, there would be two of them? It seemed that this seaport city was hiding quite a lot of good stuff. There were quite a few hidden classes and hidden subclasses in Xuanzhen. To place one's pride had been eyeing them for a long time. When he saw the class change scroll in Wuji's hand, he immediately shouted like a madman, "Mine, mine! Wuji, old dog, give it to me!" Wuji's face darkened. "Little friend, from the way you address me, you don't seem to be very sincere." Hearing Wuji's words, to place one's pride's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly changed his words. "Master Wuji, I'll listen to whatever you say in the future. Just listen to him." The others asked with a sinister smile. To place one's pride broke down. "You're all my masters, all right. MMP. That's more like it." The animals who had taken advantage of the situation had a smug look on their faces. In fact, hidden classes and regular classes each had their own merits. It was hard to say which was stronger or weaker. Although the various skills of the hidden subclasses were very powerful, once a hidden subclass was changed, one could not learn the ultimate skills of the regular subclasses. However, there was one thing. There was no setting for skills to be forgotten in Rebirth. For example, to place one's pride had learned Shadow Chain Kick from a skill book. After changing to a hidden subclass, his existing skills could still be used. Therefore, the setting that the hidden subclasses could not learn ultimate skills from the mentor was ineffective for to place one's pride. To place one's pride had always wanted to get a hidden subclass. Today, his wish was fulfilled. "Hey," just when everyone was teasing to place one's pride, Bao San suddenly said, "Is there another hidden subclass scroll for the warrior class?" After all, he was Wuji's biological brother. Although Bao San looked honest, his heart was very clear. Since the Archer and Grandmaster of Combat had class change tools, the warrior class was no exception. "Aya, you're quite smart." Chapter 1341. Assassin's Proof, Rare Item. Use it to obtain the Assassin Class Advancement Qualification. F*CK. There really is one. Everyone was dumbfounded. These three pirate heads were really rich. Mingdu had to line up to receive the Hidden Branch certificate. From Zoro's fighting style, it wasn't hard to tell that the assassin was a warrior branch with high agility. Agility was always graceful and was the class that most players preferred. As for swords, they were even more common. It couldn't be helped. Whether it was in movies or anime, the main characters were mostly swords. If you carried a stick on the streets, you would be embarrassed to greet others. Even though assassins were the mainstream in Rebirth, most players would choose to carry a sword on the streets. Even if it was just for decoration, at least it looked cool. From this, it could be seen that the Assassin Class Advancement Certificate was worth a lot. Strength aside, at least it was cool enough. Looks were definitely the most important thing in the 2D world. Among the Xuanzhen sex combatants, there were only two warriors, Bao San and Yin Lao Air. From the class classification, Bao San's weapon class was closer to the assassin class. Moreover, Bao San had already learned the warrior skills Collapsing Earth Slash and Rising Dragon Army Slash. He was definitely the best candidate to advance to the assassin class. Yin Lao naturally wanted to experience what it was like to be in the Hidden Branch. However, a shield warrior was an indispensable existence in a team. Moreover, if Yin Lao became a blade master, he would have to give up the Divine God Shield. The Divine God Shield was a godly weapon. Yin Lao Air wasn't an idiot to give up the godly weapon for an unknown branch class. As expected, the class advancement letter was taken by Bao San. Perhaps the two hidden branches had used up all his luck. Other than that, the other items were rather ordinary. It seemed like the system didn't dare give a level 60 boss too many good things. After Xuanzhen finished distributing the loot, sword pointing the heavens, and the others had also finished clearing all the pirates in Port City. At this moment, a notification flashed in the sky. System notification. City Lord Yu Hui-chung, Iron Ox, has led the army to eliminate the pirates in Port City. He has regained control of Port City and restored the sea routes. His great achievements will forever be recorded in history. The announcement was repeated 3 times in a row, resounding through the sky. Ever since the start of the Pro League, Wang Yu's name had spread throughout the continent of Rebirth. No one was too surprised to see this news. After all, this was a man who had created many miracles. Even if one day the system announced that he had killed the god of creation, no one would be too surprised. The only thing that interested everyone was the sea route mentioned in the system announcement. Although the world's data had been merged after the game update, the route to the other continents had never been known. Could this route be the route to the other continents? Just when everyone was wondering, Wang Yu and the others in Harbor City received another system prompt. Your team has completed the second part of the hidden Castellan quest, Dangerous Wall, One Piece quest level A. Obtained EXP. Main City Honor Value. Main City Reputation Value. West City Development, plus 100. Seeing the mission reward, the team leader, Don't Shoot, revealed a satisfied smile. Everything else was superficial, but the development of this city was definitely the most practical thing. This battle, from the beginning to the end, took exactly 37 minutes. Just as Wuji said, the battle ended in 40 minutes. In this battle, they had eliminated 50,000 pirates and obtained countless equipment and items. Everyone had made a lot of money. The team leader, Don't Shoot, was completely convinced by Wuji. He came to the front of the Chuanjin team and handed the double reward to Wuji without hesitation. He sighed sincerely and said, Boss Wuji, I'm really convinced this time. If there's anything good in the future, you must think of me. Sure. Wuji waved his hand and revealed a pure smile. TSK. You'll be punished by the heavens. Looking at the team leader, Don't Shoot, who had turned to leave, and then looking at Wuji's expression, Wang Yu was filled with emotion in the guild channel. What was a scammer? The highest level of a scammer was to not lie at all. They just waited to trick the other party into working for them, and even paid them. In the end, they even asked to cheat a few more times. What kind of world was this? Wuji said disdainfully. One is willing to fight, and the other is willing to suffer. Moreover, this isn't your mission. Is this the final reward? Don't tell me we're really working for Finger Sword? The Western District was Finger Sword's territory. If they were to fight to the death just to increase their development, wouldn't that be working for the team leader, Don't Shoot? Of course not. Wang Yu smiled and casually displayed the reward that the system gave him. Other than 100 construction points, Wang Yu also obtained 50 Castellan reputation points and a token. Master of the Ocean, unique item. The holder of this token is the owner of Port City and has the authority to adjust the sea route tax. Sea route, a transportation route connecting the hero's continent and other continents. Current tax rate is 10%. Holy sh*t, old cow. You're going to be rich this time. After looking at the attributes of the token, everyone in Chuanjin sucked in a breath of cold air. It seemed that everyone had guessed correctly. The sea route was indeed a route that led to other continents. It would be incredible to have control over this route. One had to know that there were hundreds of millions of players in Rebirth, and there was only one route that led to other continents. The teleportation fees in Rebirth were proportional to the distance. The further the distance, the higher the fee. Needless to say, the distance to other continents went without saying. Using 50 gold coins for each trip, a 10% tax rate will be 5 gold coins. Even if there were 10,000 people every day, that would be 50,000 gold coins. 50,000 gold coins would be more than 600,000 renminbi. It was definitely not a small amount of income. Not only that, Port City was now owned by Wang Yu. In the future, after the sea route was opened, Port City would be restored to its former prosperity. The more people there were, the more demand there would be. It was reasonable for Port City to become a trading port. Other than taxes, the fees for stalls and other things would definitely not be cheap. Wang Yu wasn't someone who was greedy for money, But who wouldn't like money? After being reminded by the Chuanjian people and thinking about the dazzling gold coins in the future, even someone like Wang Yu, who had no desires, revealed an angelic smile. Being a castellan is really good. After Port City was attacked, it became Yu Huiqing's subsidiary city, and the mutual teleportation function was activated with Yu Huiqing. The mission was completed, and the team leader could not wait to see the new district after he developed it to plus 100. Thus, after saying goodbye to Wang Yu and the others, he teleported away. Chapter 1342. Like other main cities, Harbor City's mayor's office was located in the center of the city. As soon as he entered the gate of the mayor's office, an old man quickly greeted him and said with a smile, "Sir Mayor, you're back." F***CK. The sudden appearance of this NPC gave everyone a shock. The old man had white hair and a face full of wrinkles. His smile was much more wretched than Hermit's. Wang Yu almost thought he was a pirate and gave him a hard punch. However, after sensing that the old man was not hostile, Wang Yu casually cast a detection skill. The result made Wang Yu's jaw drop. Meow, this old man was actually full of question marks. Wang Yu is now level 60. Those who could make Wang Yu full of question marks were definitely above level 100. He did not expect this old man to be an expert. "Old sir, you are?" Wang Yu, who had been tricked by Hermit in various ways, now had a shadow of old NPCs. Although Wang Yu did not have a good impression of the old men in the game, respecting the old and loving the young was a basic quality, so he still very politely cupped his hands at the old man. Seeing that Wang Yu was so polite, the old man stroked his beard in satisfaction and said, "I'm the mayor." When everyone heard this, they were immediately stunned, and their expressions became somewhat unfriendly. According to the usual practice, to become the mayor, one must defeat the previous mayor. Could it be that this old man was the final boss? Seeing everyone's expression, the old man smiled and said, "The butler of..." As he spoke, a name appeared above the old man's head. City Butler. The naming method of the game designers was so simple and crude. F***CK. After knowing the true identity of the old man, everyone was speechless. This old man was even panting when he spoke. One look, and they could tell that he was not a decent NPC. Of course, it was not like they had not seen NPCs that were even more despicable than this. Getting angry with this kind of data was purely making things difficult for oneself. Ignoring the old man's mischief, Wang Yu extended his hand and said politely, "I'm the new mayor, and I'm here to take over Harbor City." I know." The old butler nodded and then did not continue. When Wang Yu saw that the old butler had stopped talking, he immediately asked in surprise, "Then what's next?" The old butler said indifferently, "Next? So you're the city lord." "That's it." Wang Yu was puzzled. "Then where's my city lord seal?" Taking over a main city wasn't as simple as becoming a guild leader. Establishing a guild in name and becoming the guild leader was a non-governmental organization. The official identity of a city lord required the city lord seal. Without the city lord seal, even the title of city lord would be useless. Not only would he not be in charge of taxes and other matters, but he would also not be able to command any NPCs. On the contrary, he would even receive a deduction for the repair fees due to the title. This was a trade that would only result in losses. Hence, Wang Yu's top priority right now was to obtain the city lord seal. This old man was clearly trying to scam him by refusing to give him the seal. The seal. The old man spread his hands and said lazily, "It's long gone." "What?" Wang Yu was stunned. "That's it? There's still such a thing?" "Yes." The old man sighed. "This place has been occupied by a group of lawless pirates for so many years. What's the use of the city lord's seal? It's long gone." Hearing the old man's words, Wang Yu secretly vomited a mouthful of old blood. Meow, this system was too shameless. It clearly said that the reward was the ocean path. Now that there was no city lord seal, the ocean path only belonged to Wang Yu in name. Even the reward that was already in his hands had to be deducted. The conscience of the game developers was really black to the extreme. He knew that there was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. It was obviously unreliable to think that he could earn so much money by completing an A-rank mission. Now, he did not get a free lunch, but a painted one instead. Wang Yu thought for a while and asked the old butler, "Then can I give up the city lord title?" It was a title without a seal, and he still had to pay for it. If it was a nouveau riche like the whole of Windcloud who care more about face than money, such a title would be like buying a membership. As for Wang Yu, although Wang Yu was not as self-centered as the people from Chuanjin, he was still a pragmatist. Naturally, he would not spend money on such a thing. Moreover, Wang Yu did not care about the city lord title. Yes, the butler nodded. Just set up the abandonment or transfer of the main city here. Is that so? Wang Yu was overjoyed. Then hurry up, I don't want this city anymore. I'm sorry. The old butler refused. You don't have the authority to order me now, why? Wang Yu was puzzled again. The old butler said lightly, "According to the rules, I can only listen to the order of the holder of the city lord's seal, no matter who it is." Damn! Wang Yu was completely speechless. Only a fool with a seal would abandon the city. All right, this was an unsolvable, endless loop. Was the system determined to eat him up? Can you make an exception for once? Wang Yu took out a money bag and handed it to the old butler. This old butler's AI was obviously not low. In Rebirth, the higher the AI of the NPC, the easier it was to talk to them. As long as the benefits were given, they could open the back door for the players without breaking the rules. Speaking of benefits, the most direct one was of course the gold coins. This trick had been used by Wang Yu since the beginner's village. Whether it was a high AI NPC or a dumb NPC with a function, it had always been successful. The old butler weighed the money bag that Wang Yu gave him and quickly kept it. He then continued to shake his head. "No, damn you, give me the money." Wang Yu was furious. Even if he was shameless, there should be a limit. How could he take the money without doing anything? "I'm sorry, you don't have the authority to order me." After that, the old man smiled treacherously. "Do you think I'm stupid? As long as you have the title, all the expenses of Harbor City have to be paid by you. You want to shirk your responsibility with this little money? Damn it." Wang Yu finally understood that he was now trapped by this broken city. As long as he did not give up the title of the city lord, all the expenses of Harbor City would be handled by Yu Huicheng in the future, and the taxes of Harbor City would go into the system's pocket. To get rid of such a shameless scam in one go was obviously not something that could be settled with a little money. "Tell me, how much money do you want?" Wang Yu asked straightforwardly. It was better to get the pain over with. Wang Yu was also a straightforward person and did not want to waste time. Hee. The old man smiled wretchedly. "At least you have to pay off the salary owed by the former city lord first." "Oh? How much does he owe you?" Wang Yu asked curiously. The old man took out an abacus and shook it. Then he said in a daze, "This has to be calculated carefully. It's not so easy to sort out the accounts from hundreds of years ago." When Wang Yu heard this, his face immediately darkened. He said coldly, "Can I beat you?" Chapter 1343. "Yes," the old butler said, "but I'm at the same level as the main city guards, so please think carefully before beating me up." Wang Yu, damn it, this old man is a pure troublemaker, unmoved by force or persuasion. I don't know what the game developers went through to actually design this old man to be so shameless. Just as Wang Yu and the old butler were chatting, Wuji suddenly asked, "The pirates have occupied Harbor City for so many years. Harbor City also has taxes, right?" "Huh?" Hearing Wuji's words, the old butler raised his eyebrows slightly, and his eyes suddenly became dignified. He then stared at Wuji and said, "That's right. Hee." Wuji smiled faintly, took out a bag of gold coins, and said, "Then can you tell me who collected this tax?" "Huh?" The old butler laughed and took the money bag from Wuji's hand and said, "What a smart child." After saying that, he did not forget to despise Wang Yu and said, "Unlike you, you still want to fight with me." Wang Yu's face turned red from being despised. At this moment, the old butler said slowly, "Yes, Harbor City has always had taxes all these years." A group of pirates still pay taxes? Hearing the old butler say this, Everyone in Xuanzhen was dumbfounded. It would be reasonable for the city to pay taxes according to the law. These pirates were just robbers, so why do they have to be so legit? Of course, pirates are unwilling to pay taxes. The old butler said, but they only occupy Harbor City, and the Harbor City Lord is not them. According to the rules, they naturally have to pay taxes. Oh, I see. When the old butler said this, Wang Yu suddenly realized, according to what you said, the seal of the Harbor City Lord is on the tax collector? Taxation was a right that the City Lord should enjoy, and only those with the City Lord seal were qualified to enjoy this right. The old butler just said that there was no seal, but he didn't say that anyone didn't. It was difficult to deceive Wuji with this kind of word game. After all, Wuji was also an expert in this field. Not bad. Sure enough, the old butler nodded and said, 300 years ago, Harbor City was attacked by pirates. The former mayor of Harbor City, Carl, abandoned the people of the city and fled alone with the mayor's seal. His whereabouts are still unknown. Missing. Mingdu laughed at the side. Missing, and you still have to pay taxes? I'm afraid that it was swallowed up by you, old man. If only that was the case. The old butler complained. According to the system settings, taxes will be forcibly transferred to the account of the owner of the city's seal every month. The civil servants of our harbor city all rely on taxes to live. Poor me. I'm old and have been owed hundreds of years of wages. TSK, TSK, TSK. We heard the old butler's words. Wang Yu couldn't help but sigh. The system god settings were the rules, and the NPCs, as the natives of the game, had to abide by the rules. He didn't expect things like delayed wages to happen in the game, and it had been delayed for hundreds of years. Hundreds of years, meow, this old thing really lived. However, since ancient times, those who owed wages did not have a good ending. Back then, Headmaster Jiang owed Taizu's wages, and in the end, even the world was taken by Taizu. This was a live example. It was no wonder that the people of Harbor City did not resist when the pirates had been here for so many years. Young City Lord. The old butler pleaded, "Can you help me seek justice?" System notification. You have triggered the hidden main city quest, Dangerous Wall, the third stage Lost City Lord Seal. Quest level A. Do you accept? Most of the quests in the early stages of Rebirth were combat-oriented, but the later stages, the quests became more and more bizarre, especially the search quests. To be honest, Wang Yu personally hated these kind of quests. With Wang Yu's level, the combat quests were not a problem no matter how difficult they were, but to find something, this was a bit of a pain in the ass. That damned former city lord had been missing for 300 years. Not to mention how big the world was, it was extremely difficult to find a person who had disappeared for 300 years in the vast sea of people. Even if he was found, he would most likely be dead for a long time. However, Wang Yu also knew what the first two parts of this quest were like. He had to accept this lousy quest, or else he wouldn't know what would happen. Sigh. Wang Yu let out a sigh and casually clicked accept. System notification. You have accepted the hidden main city quest Dangerous Wall, the third stage Lost City Lord Seal. Quest level A. Quest requirement. Find the mayor's seal and retroactively pay the salary of the mayor's butler. Quest hint. This quest is relatively difficult. Please gather your companions and proceed together. The team is limited to 15 people. Looking at the quest content, Wang Yu speechlessly asked the old butler, "This world is so big. Don't tell me you intend to make me search through it. Tell me if you have any clues. This isn't just about me, it's also about your salary." Hee hee. The old butler smiled faintly and said, "I heard from the pirates a month ago that they seem to have seen City Lord Carl on Immortal Abode Island. You can go there to take a look first." Immortal Abode Island? Wang Yu frowned and asked, "Where is that?" "It's the 17th district of the Brave Continent." Wuji said, "It's also the legendary Japanese server." Japanese server? Wang Yu was a little surprised. "We have to cross servers to do a quest?" "Yes," Wuji said with certainty. "If I'm not wrong, this chain of quests is the one that opens the route between the local server and the Japanese server." Wuji was an old gamer and knew the game designer's tricks like the back of his hand. The official announcement of data interoperability roughly meant that the servers that had nothing to do with each other before were now in the same world, but the players had to explore and complete quests to open up the routes between the servers. The sea route that Wang Yu had obtained in the previous quest was the route between the local server and the Japanese server. However, in the background storyline, the sea route had been idle for 300 years. Now, this quest was most likely set to open up the sea route. To place one's pride came over and asked, "Then, how should we go to Immortal Abode Island now?" The old butler said, "There's a cargo ship at the port that was intercepted by the pirates back then. You might be able to take that ship out to sea." Great, even the ship was ready. The nature of this quest was indeed as Wuji had said. Finding the former mayor was secondary, and the main purpose was to reopen the sea route. After leaving the city lord's mansion, Chuanjin and the others followed the old butler's instructions and found the cargo ship at the port. The cargo ship was still very big for the pirates to keep it as a treasure. However, it did not look too optimistic after being stranded for 300 years. Chapter 1344. However, it was just a game. No matter how bad the ship was, as long as the system said that it could go to sea, the goal of this thing was the Sea of Stars. Of course, even though the ship looked mediocre, because the game's background was swords and magic, the ship's power system was the same as an airship's. Furthermore, it had a stealthily variable speed control system. It was even more advanced than a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. After the Chuanjin members boarded the ship, as the captain, Wang Yu received a system notification. All members are present. Do you want to set sail? They were not here for sightseeing, so of course they had to set sail. Wang Yu clicked yes without hesitation. Following Wang Yu's click to set sail, the huge sail rose up with a whoosh. Then, the magical crystals on the ship flashed with a green light, and a gust of wind blew. The ship gradually left the coast. Other than Mingdu, the Chuanjin members were all northerners. It was difficult for them to see water, let alone sail on a ship. They were even more excited about riding a ship than riding an airship for the first time. All of them surrounded the deck and looked around. Looking at the endless sea, their hearts were indescribably carefree. No wonder so many people liked to watch the sea. Such an environment really made people feel happy. Disregarding everything else, just the realism of rebirth alone was enough to make anyone feel relaxed and happy. After all, this set of gaming equipment only cost a few $1,000s. The feeling of flying in the sky and diving into the sea was not something that could be experienced with just a few $1,000s. In the past, people did not understand why the travelers in the game would spend so much money to see the scenery in the game. Today, everyone finally understood. They did it to experience the fun. It was a game. The gameplay was not important. As long as it made people happy, that was where its value lay. Compared to Wang Yu and his group of boorish men, Yang Na and Exquisite Dream were more meticulous. Looking at the endless sea, the two of them said with some regret, "I wonder if there are swimsuits in this game." Hee hee. Hearing the girl's words, Mingdu smiled wretchedly and said, "Why do we need swimsuits in the game? You two can just take off your equipment and jump in." Nude swimming is popular now. Before Mingdu could finish speaking, Yang Na's face darkened. She raised her crossbow and pointed it at Mingdu's head. Narrowing her eyes, she said, "Is that so?" With Yang Na's rebuttal, Mingdu's face turned pale. He panicked and said, "Yes, yes, but I personally don't approve of such behavior." "No problem." Linglong Meng smiled and walked over. "We agree." "Oh, really?" Hearing Linglong Meng's words, Mingdu almost had a nosebleed. The others around him also revealed urgent looks. Even the usually serious Wang Yu turned his head and said with a red face, "Stop fooling around." "I'm not joking." Linglong Meng smiled and raised the crossbow in her hand. She shot an arrow at Mingdu's feet. Mingdu was still daydreaming. Before he could react, he was nailed to the deck by Linglong Meng. Yang Na walked forward and with a backhand grab, she pinned Mingdu to the ground. Then, she raised her chin at Ming Jiandao Xue and said, "Come here, take it off." Hearing Yang Na's words, Ming Jian Daoxue was immediately stunned. The surrounding people also expressed their disappointment. He thought he would be able to see something not suitable for children. He didn't expect these two girls to have such strong tastes. What was there to see with Mingdu's skinny body and his ribs? He might as well take off Wang Yu. This kid had a martial arts background. At the very least, he had a body full of muscles and an eight-pack. There was a saying that only vile people and women were difficult to deal with. The people from Xuanzhen were vile people, and these two girls were the women of vile people. It was easy to imagine how difficult it was to deal with them. Ming Jian Daoxue's strength in Xuanzhen's battle formation was at the bottom. Naturally, he didn't dare to offend Yang Na and Ling Longmeng. Besides, the happiest thing was to build one's happiness on the pain of others. Bullying others was such a happy thing. Ming Jian Daoxue had no reason to refuse. So, he walked over with a smirk on his face. Mingdu was completely controlled by Ling Longmeng. He couldn't run even if he wanted to. He could only struggle and shout, "Old Shui, don't you dare." It would have been better if Mingdu didn't resist. The more he resisted, the more excited Ming Jian Daoxue became. He laughed and said, "Aha, Brother Ming, I'm sorry. I can't do anything about it. You won't be at a disadvantage anyway." Brother Shui, Uncle Shui, Grandpa Shui. Just you wait. As Mingdu screamed, Ming Jian Daoxue used the steel skill on Mingdu's body. It didn't take long for Mingdu to be stripped naked. Fortunately, the system's setting was not as despicable as the people from Xuanzhen. It even left a fig leaf for Mingdu. However, when they saw Mingdu's bare ribs covering his crotch in the corner, everyone felt an inexplicable excitement. "Throw him down." Under Ling Longmeng's command, Bao San walked to Mingdu's side and tossed him into the sea. As expected of someone who grew up by the sea, Mingdu's swimming skills were really good. He was actually able to catch up to the boat. Not good. Just as everyone was watching Mingdu swim naked, Mingdu suddenly shouted and flashed onto the deck. Seeing that Mingdu dared to board the boat without permission, Yang Na pointed at Mingdu and said angrily, "Hurry up and get down, or I'll shoot you." Mingdu waved his hand and fired Yang Na's crossbow. He shouted anxiously, "Stop messing around. There's a situation in these waters." A situation? Everyone smiled when they heard that. To place one's pride, he said, "You're not trying to fool us just to stay in the water for a while, are you? Why would I lie to you?" Mingdu said anxiously, "There really is a situation. Just now, I saw a boat chasing us underwater. Hurry up and give me the equipment." As he said that, Mingdu snatched his equipment from Ming Jian Daoxue's hands and hurriedly put it on. A boat? Chasing us? Everyone looked around. The sea was calm. Not to mention a boat. Not even a bird could be seen. They could not help but say in surprise, "Ming, are you out of your mind? How can there be a boat in the sea?" Mingdu said, "Did I say the sea? It's under the sea." Under the sea? Huh. Everyone laughed as they looked at Ling Longmeng. "Old Meng, why did you play with him for no reason? He's gone crazy. All right, he knows he's in the wrong. For our sake, let him go." If he said that there was a fish following him underwater, everyone might really believe it. But wasn't it bullshit to say that there was a boat following him underwater? Could it be that there were things like submarines in this world? "All right," Ling Longmeng also said with a smile, "seeing how well you acted, I'll forgive you. Let's return to reality." But all right. Chapter 1345. The scenery hasn't changed? It hasn't. Everyone looked around again when they heard that, but they couldn't figure out what was going on. They were at sea, not on land. They were surrounded by water without any reference. If they weren't an experienced navigator, they wouldn't have noticed anything strange. Wang Yu had never left his house since he was a child. He had only been to a river a few times, not to mention the seaside. Of course, he wasn't an experienced navigator. But as a martial artist, Wang Yu was used to being wary of danger. It was common knowledge that Wang Yu had no sense of direction, especially in such a monotonous environment. So, when the ship left the harbor, Wang Yu's eyes kept observing the surroundings. He didn't let down his guard for even a moment, so he could sense things that others couldn't. "It has changed." Wang Yu pointed at the sun. The sun was there when we left the harbor, and it hasn't moved yet. Big brother. To place one's pride was speechless. The sun moves. You can only use it as a reference. To place one's pride was right. Even navigators only use the sun to determine their direction. They wouldn't use it as a reference to measure the ship's speed. However, Wang Yu shook his head. Does the sun move in the game? Everyone was stunned when they heard Wang Yu's words. In order to highlight the special testing of each main city, Rebirth had its own weather system. Thorn City was like autumn all year round, while Blazing Snow City was snowing every day. Unless the system organized an event, the weather would not change. Celestial bodies like the sun and moon were the same. They didn't move. When sailing on the sea, there was nothing wrong with Wang Yu using the sun as a reference. No wonder Mingdu was able to catch up with the ship when he was swimming. So the ship didn't move? I didn't swim. I just dove. With Wang Yu's reminder, the others began to feel the strange atmosphere. Although Yang Na was skilled in martial arts, she was a girl after all. She was instinctively afraid of such strange things. When she heard what everyone said, her face turned pale with fright. Could it be a ghost wall? Don't worry. Wuji comforted her. There are no ghosts in this world. Not even in the game. Yang Na asked. Wuji was speechless. Meow. This was a story with a sword and magic background. There were even demons, so ghosts were not child's play. Brother Chun could summon a bunch of them in minutes. Boom! Just when everyone was at a loss, the hull of the ship suddenly shook violently, and at the same time, there was a loud noise. The swaying came too suddenly. Caught off guard, the Chuanjin people were flung out one after another. Wang Yu and Yang Na were more agile. They quickly adjusted their balance, retreated to the edge of the deck, and grabbed onto the handrails. At that moment, the surface of the sea in front of the ship bulged like a mountain. A wave slammed into Wang Yu's ship, and the ship violently bobbed up and down again. If it weren't for the fact that they were in the game and the system greatly reduced the negative senses, the Chuanjin people would have vomited on the spot. When the wave dissipated, Wang Yu's ship gradually stabilized. At that moment, a huge ship appeared in front of Wang Yu's ship. The ship was several times bigger than Wang Yu's ship. From the outside, it looked even more broken than Wang Yu's ship. Not only was it dirty, there were holes all over the ship's body. What was even stranger was that the mast was covered in spider webs and seaweed. Meow! This was a ship that had emerged from the water. The seaweed was understandable, but what was up with the spider webs? After steadying himself, Wang Yu casually threw out a detect spell. The huge ship's information immediately appeared in the party channel. HMS Despair. Vehicle background introduction. Legend has it that Spectre ship can bring despair to people. It carries the nightmares of countless passing merchants. That's the ship. At that moment, Mingdu pointed at the HMS Despair and shouted, "That's the ship I saw underwater just now." Ha ha ha! Greetings, fat sheep. As soon as Mingdu's voice fell, an ear-piercing laughter came from the HMS Despair. Everyone looked towards the source of the laughter and saw a huge figure standing on the deck of the HMS Despair, looking down at them from above. The figure was 3 meters tall and wore a black hat. Under the hat was a strange face covered in octopus tentacles. Its lower body was like a crab with 8 legs. Its right hand was holding a musket, and its left hand was a large crab's pincer. Coupled with the ear-piercing sound, it looked extremely strange. Wang Yu threw out another detect spell, and the information of the HMS Despair's owner appeared in front of everyone. Undead Captain Blackbeard, LV-60, Dark Gold Boss, Epic, HP, 1000000 MP, 2000000 skills, Musket of Despair, Title Charge, Undead Cannon Talents, Gambling Background Introduction. Originally the Overlord of the Sea of Death. Due to unknown reasons, he wandered here 300 years ago and became the captain of the HMS Despair. He is cruel and addicted to gambling. He is extremely dangerous. This thing is an epic? To be honest, when they saw Blackbeard's attributes, Quan Zhun and the others were quite surprised. Such an ugly monster that was neither fish nor crab and didn't look very strong was actually a powerful person. Of course, if it was in the past, they would have been excited to see an epic boss, but now, there are almost a dozen epic bosses that died at Wang Yu's hands. Any one of them was much stronger than this guy. There was a saying that went, "Those who have seen the ocean cannot see the water." This guy who lost at the starting line in terms of appearance naturally didn't surprise Quan Jin. TCH, everyone looked at Blackbeard with disdain and shook their heads. I was wondering who it was. So arrogant. So it's just a small fry. Old cow, I'll leave it to you. After saying that, everyone laughed and retreated, leaving the battlefield on the deck to Wang Yu. Seeing the reaction of Quan Jin, Blackbeard was a little confused. Especially when he saw that only one Grandmaster of Combat was left, Blackbeard was stunned for a full 5 seconds before he shouted pitifully, "Hey, hey, hey, where are you guys going?" In the game settings, Blackbeard had been famous at sea for a long time. Normal travelers would be scared **less when they heard his name, but these guys from Quan Jin actually didn't care. This was too **king heart-wrenching. Even if the players on the opposite ship were different from normal people, they were only around level 50. How could they not have any reaction when they saw a level 60 epic boss? Were the players nowadays so picky? Find a comfortable place to sit down and watch you get beaten up. Wuji turned his head and replied calmly. Chapter 1346. An epic boss, no matter how bad its grade or level was, would still be a famous existence in the game. Blackbeard boasted that he was a level 60 dark gold epic, and his strength could be considered as an overlord. Facing such an opponent, not only did he not prepare for battle, but he actually sent one person out to fight him alone. It seemed like he could take care of him alone. This was looking down on him too much, wasn't it? Meow. As the saying goes, a warrior can be killed, but not humiliated. As a boss, he didn't want to lose face. Oh ho! Hearing Blackbeard's words, Wuji was slightly stunned. Then he raised his chin at Wang Yu and said, "Old cow, since he wants to be respected, you should be more serious. Don't let him think that he's not a good character." After saying that, Wuji turned his head and said to the others in Xuanjin, "See that? He's asking for a beating. I've never seen such a request in my life." It could be said that Wuji was too vicious. He didn't seem to be very good at martial arts, but his mouth could still kill people. Normal people would go crazy if they were scolded by Wuji, let alone a boss like Blackbeard who had such a strong ego. "Why you brat? You're talking nonsense." Blackbeard was immediately enraged when he heard Wuji's words. He roared, bent his 8 legs, and jumped down from the despair. The large pincer in his hand was aimed at Wuji's head. Blackbeard's pincer was a meter long, and it was covered with sharp spikes. It could be used as a mace. It was obvious that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. If Wuji's small arms and legs were hit by it, he would definitely die on the spot. However, just as Blackbeard was about to smash Wuji to death, Wuji took a step back and gave himself an invincible buff. Before Blackbeard's pincer could hit Wuji's head, a long staff suddenly stabbed out from the side, blocking between Blackbeard and Wuji. Thud! With a muffled sound, the stick pulled and guided, and Blackbeard's strength immediately shifted. His entire body brushed past Wuji's shoulder, and his pincer stabbed into the deck, creating a hole. Yeah! His attack was deflected by the stick that suddenly appeared. Blackbeard was shocked. His other hand fiercely pressed on the deck and pulled out the pincers. He then turned around and looked at the direction of the stick. He saw Wang Yu holding the stick in one hand and beckoning him with the other. Wang Yu said indifferently, "Come, your opponent is me." "What insolence!" Blackbeard shouted. With a flip of his right hand, a flintlock appeared in his hand. He aimed the muzzle at Wang Yu and fired. Bang! With a loud bang, a bullet the size of an adult's fist flew towards Wang Yu at an extremely fast speed, accompanied by a ball of flame. Huh! Seeing this huge bullet, Wuji raised his eyebrows. What kind of F***king caliber flintlock was needed to shoot such a big bullet? This should be called a cannonball. Wang Yu didn't even look at the bullet. He slightly tilted his head, and the bullet flew past Wang Yu's face. Without waiting for Blackbeard to retract the flintlock in his hand, Wang Yu suddenly took a step forward. The long stick in his hand extended forward and hit Blackbeard's face. Aya! Not only was the angle of Wang Yu's stick extremely tricky, but it was also strangely strong. Caught off guard, Blackbeard was hit and his head tilted back. Immediately afterwards, Wang Yu stuck the long stick into the deck, and his feet flew up into the air, kicking Blackbeard's face. Eagle stamp, strong kick, thunder stamp. Wang Yu's 2 feet kicked out consecutively. His 2 big feet carried the blue light of thunder as they stepped on Blackbeard's face, making a heavy impact. Under Wang Yu's continuous kicks, Blackbeard was kicked back again and again. -20014-14124-84565-100 with a string of damage values floating up, Blackbeard was directly kicked back several meters by Wang Yu's last thunderstamp. If it weren't for Blackbeard's 8 legs, which were extremely stable, perhaps he would have been lying on the ground after being kicked by Wang Yu. Creak! An ear-piercing sound of friction rang out. The deck was scratched by Blackbeard's 8 legs, leaving deep scratches. Although Blackbeard had 8 legs, he was a typical strength-type boss. His movement speed was slow to the max, don't even talk about comparing him to Wang Yu. In terms of agility, this guy probably couldn't even catch up to the place one's pride. Wang Yu was in free mode. When his attack completion reached a certain index, his attacks could ignore defense. This kind of strength-type boss that lacks speed was basically equivalent to a child of wealth in front of Wang Yu. If he dropped his equipment early and ran away, he might even be able to give less experience. After Blackbeard stabilized himself with great difficulty, Wang Yu retracted his staff, took a step forward, and punched Blackbeard. Blackbeard was a full 3 meters tall. Wang Yu's punch just happened to be aimed at Blackbeard's crotch. Although Blackbeard was a half-octopus, half-crab monster, his bones seemed to hide a human soul. Seeing that Wang Yu's attack was so dirty, Blackbeard's left hand hurriedly pressed down, and a large pincer was placed in front of his body to block Wang Yu's path. Unexpectedly, Wang Yu lowered his head and dodged Blackbeard's left hand. At the same time, he leaped onto Blackbeard's knee and jumped up. His right fist punched upwards with flames. Fiery Dragon Fist. Bang! 2 fire dragons burst out from Wang Yu's fist and heavily hit Blackbeard's chin. Fiery Dragon Fist was one of the Grandmaster of Combat's level 55 skills. Although it wasn't as powerful as Shadow Chain Kick, it was still quite powerful. It could summon fire elements to attach to the fist, and from the bottom up, it could cause devastating damage to the target, and it also had a knockback effect. It was a very good 3-stage anti-air skill. Blackbeard was tall, and it just so happened that he became Wang Yu's target. Even though Blackbeard was a strength-based boss and had 80% immunity, when Wang Yu's punch landed, Blackbeard was still knocked back. Taking advantage of your weakness had always been Wang Yu's fighting style. Seeing that Blackbeard had lost his balance, Wang Yu, who was in midair, immediately activated Burning Flame Steps. Crimson flames wrapped around Wang Yu's legs, and he stomped down from midair. Heavy Flame Steps. Heavy Flame Steps was actually Eagle Stamp. After being strengthened by Burning Flame Steps, it changed from a low-level skill to a powerful landing skill. After adding the fire element, not only did it retain the strong priority of Eagle Stamp, but its attack power was also comparable to Thunder Stamp. Moreover, when attacking from midair, it also had additional damage. Of course, Blackbeard was still an epic boss. Even if his speed was his weakness, it was still a little unrealistic for him to be beaten up by a player of the same level. Tidal Wave. Facing Wang Yu's Heavy Flame Steps, Blackbeard crossed his arms in front of his body, and at the same time, a circle of tidal wave barrier rose under his feet to protect himself. Duan. The tidal wave canceled out the attribute damage on Wang Yu's foot, and Wang Yu stepped on both of Blackbeard's arms. Chapter 1347. After all, Blackbeard was a strength-type boss. His monstrous strength alone was terrifying. Even though the damage from Wang Yu's kick was negated, it was still a Grandmaster of Combat skill, so its strength was still very strong. However, When Wang Yu's kick landed on Blackbeard's arms, it was as if he had kicked a steel plate. Not only did Blackbeard not receive any damage, he didn't even move. Back off! At this moment, Blackbeard's arms suddenly swung outwards. Wang Yu instantly felt an earth-shattering force coming from his feet. In a split second, Wang Yu's legs kicked off, and he quickly jumped backwards. Using Blackbeard's powerful force, he somersaulted backwards and landed on the edge of the deck. Tidal charge! At the same time, Blackbeard shouted, and another wave rose under his feet. Stepping on the wave, Blackbeard rushed towards Wang Yu at high speed. Even if they had never been on a ship before, they should know that the space at the top of the deck was very narrow. Blackbeard's wave was very wide, and it completely sealed off the space in front of Wang Yu. Wang Yu had no space to dodge. Seeing that Wang Yu was about to be pushed off the ship by Blackbeard, Wang Yu suddenly tensed up. His left leg stepped on the edge of the deck, and his right leg bent forward. He switched his weapon to a staff, and with a flash of golden light, he activated Dragon, subduing Palm. At this time, Blackbeard was less than 2 meters away from Wang Yu. Wang Yu suddenly extended the staff under Blackbeard's feet, and then jumped up with both arms. He shouted, "Go!" and used Green Dragon out at sea. Everyone knew that when an object was moving at high speed, a small stone could trip it up. Not to mention that Wang Yu was now in the state of Dragon, subduing Palm, and his hands were moving upwards skillfully. When Wang Yu was level 10, he used this move to send an aerial, who was even bigger than Blackbeard, flying. Now that he was able to send Blackbeard flying, it was no longer a problem. Following Wang Yu's shout, the staff used Blackbeard's momentum to lift up. Blackbeard suddenly felt empty under his feet, and his body lost balance. Plop! Blackbeard drew an arc in the air and fell into the sea, stirring up a huge wave. Awesome! Awesome! Seeing Wang Yu send Blackbeard flying with a stick, even though the Chuanjian people were used to seeing Wang Yu's valiance, they couldn't help but give Wang Yu a thumbs up. But before everyone could recover from the shock of Wang Yu's valiance, Blackbeard emerged from the sea with a splash, raised the gun in his right hand, and pulled the trigger. Following a gunshot, a dazzling signal flare shot out from Blackbeard's gun. At the same time, the hull of the HMS Despair behind Blackbeard extended a dense array of cannons, aimed at Wang Yu on the deck. Undead cannon. Rumble. As soon as Blackbeard gave the order, the cannons on the Despair opened fire. A dense barrage of cannonballs flew towards Wang Yu's ship. Wang Yu's ship was already extremely dilapidated. With such a dense barrage of cannonballs, even an aircraft carrier wouldn't be able to withstand such a ferocious barrage. Not to mention a dilapidated ship like Wang Yu's, it would be smashed into pieces on the spot. It had to be known that everyone was on the sea. Not to mention that Wang Yu and the others weren't experts in water battles. There was also the HMS Despair on the other side, and Blackbeard was eyeing them like a tiger watching its prey. Even if there weren't any enemies on the sea right now, it was inevitable that people would feel despair if they didn't have a means of transportation in such an endless sea. What's more, this was the only ship that Harbor City could send out. If this ship was destroyed, who knew when Wang Yu and the others would be able to go out to sea again? It was a small matter if they couldn't complete the mission. The key was that once Wang Yu's title as the city lord was established, he would suffer a loss for the rest of his life. After going through so many storms and waves, how could he suffer a loss in the hands of Crab? Wang Yu steeled his heart and clenched his fists. His body emitted a blue and green light. At the same time, a white light flashed, and he activated his internal breath. Finally, he pushed his palms forward and used his strongest killer move, toppling the mountains and overturning the seas. Ultimate Dragon Subduing Mysteries Shockwave. A line of golden words lit up above Wang Yu's head. Thunderstorm Fury, Burning Flame Steps, Dragon Subduing Palm, Internal Breath. Any one of these 4 buffs was a skill that could turn something rotten into something magical. At this moment, with the 4 powerful buffs stacked together, Wang Yu's attributes instantly rose to a whole new level. This toppling the mountains and overturning the seas was definitely the strongest skill that Wang Yu could use at this moment. It was also the strongest skill that a player could use since the start of the server. Roar! As Wang Yu stretched his palms forward, a golden dragon shot out from Wang Yu's palms and collided with the densely packed cannonballs. The cannonballs were like ants in a wave. They were instantly engulfed by Wang Yu's skill. They didn't even make a single wave. After Wang Yu's palm destroyed all the cannonballs, it didn't lose momentum and smashed into Blackbeard's despair. Boom! The golden dragon bombarded the despair, creating a dazzling light. After a long time, the golden light dissipated. There was no trace of the despair on the surface of the sea. All that was left was a scattered piece of wood that floated along with the waves. The gigantic HMS Despair had actually been smashed into pieces by that single palm strike. The ship was smashed. Looking at the mess on the surface of the sea, Chuanjin felt like they were in a dream. They didn't know how to express their feelings anymore. Really, everyone felt like they were in a dream. Although everyone knew that Wang Yu's strength was unfathomable, no one dared to imagine that the power of Wang Yu's palm would be so strong. This was a huge ship. It would be understandable if it had been destroyed by a level 100 boss, but it had been destroyed by a level 60 player with a single slap. Even the author would think that he was exaggerating too much if he told others about it. Meow. How is that a human? It's practically a human-shaped self-propelled nuclear bomb. Actually, Chuanjin and the others' reactions weren't that intense. After all, everyone was somewhat mentally prepared for Wang Yu's palm. At this moment, the most dumbfounded person was the owner of the Despair, Blackbeard. Seeing his ship smashed into pieces, Blackbeard was so shocked that his jaw dropped. When he regained his senses, what followed was pain in his heart. My ship, just kill me. Why are you venting your anger on my ship? The resentful Blackbeard roared as he jumped out of the sea and onto the deck of Wang Yu's ship. He angrily charged at Wang Yu. Although Wang Yu didn't have any internal strength, he still had 4 super strong buffs. His attributes were still overpowered, and he could easily beat up Blackbeard with normal attacks. Naturally, he wasn't afraid of the charging Blackbeard. He raised his hand and aimed at Blackbeard. Before Wang Yu's palm could land, plop. Chapter 1348. Hero, spare my life. Blackbeard knelt on the ground with tears and snot. Wang Yu and the others were stunned. Meow. They had seen their fair share of shameless NPCs, but this was the first time they had seen someone like Bearded who would kneel down and beg for mercy when he couldn't win. Couldn't he have some moral integrity? He was really embarrassing the boss. Besides, since he knew that he couldn't win, he could just turn around and run. Why did he jump on the ship and admit defeat? Was it more sincere? The system setting was really speechless. All of this had nothing to do with the author. Everyone knew that Wang Yu had a temper that was amenable to coaxing, but not coercion. As long as the opponent admitted defeat, Wang Yu was always willing to give him a chance to be the boss again. Blackbeard knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. Wang Yu naturally wouldn't kill him, so he retracted his palm that had already reached Blackbeard's head and said indifferently, "In the future, this sea route will be under my control. You can't come here and cause trouble anymore. Do you hear me?" In fact, Blackbeard's setting was a pirate. Not letting him cause trouble on the sea route was basically letting him starve to death. He couldn't be a great pirate that dominated the 4 seas and be an honest fisherman. However, it was good enough that he could survive now. Blackbeard didn't dare to care about these things. Seeing that Wang Yu was lenient, Blackbeard quickly nodded in agreement. There was no other way. A strong enemy was in front of him. If he agreed, he might only starve to death. If he didn't agree, he would die now. Blackbeard was still very clear about what to choose. And Wang Yu nodded and said, "You're sensible. You can leave." Blackbeard saw that Wang Yu asked him to leave so easily. He hesitated for a moment and then said, "Hero, you can't do this. What? Do you want to practice with me?" Wang Yu raised his eyebrows and asked. As he spoke, he showed his sandbag-sized fist. No. Blackbeard was shocked and hurriedly waved his hand. Can you give me something to eat? F***CK. Hearing Blackbeard's words, the Chuanjin people spat out a mouthful of blood. Damn it, he had seen shameless people, but he had never seen someone as shameless as this. As a boss, it was not shameful to be beaten up by players. After all, they were designed to be abused by players. However, this bastard was still an epic boss. He was also a famous character in the history books. At this time, he was beaten up. Not only did he not kill him, but he was also spared his life and told him to scram. This kind of behavior was already merciful, but this grandson actually had the cheek to ask for food, begging for food from players. No one had ever heard of such a shameless boss. No, Wang Yu wasn't a difficult person to talk to, but this time, Wang Yu decisively rejected Blackbeard. It wasn't that Wang Yu was stingy and couldn't bear to part with food. It was just that food in the game didn't mean much to players. There was no such thing as hunger in Rebirth. Apart from replenishing one's HP and increasing one's attributes for a short period of time, food's greatest value was to satisfy one's appetite. Xuanjin didn't have logistical support like Li Shui, so the use of food was even more insignificant. The player's inventory wasn't considered big. Wouldn't bringing so much food in the inventory take up space? If one delayed proper business because of gluttony, he would be laughed at. Let's not talk about other places. Just take Wu Ji, for example. This fellow had chosen to be a chef as a secondary profession, and even now, he was mocked by the animals in Xuanjin. With a teacher like Wu Ji, even the gluttonous girls didn't dare to bring snacks out on a daily basis. Blackbeard seemed to have expected this. He sighed and was about to turn around and jump off the boat sadly. At this time, Wu Ji suddenly rolled his eyes and said, "You want to leave just like that?" Hearing Wu Ji's words, Blackbeard's expression changed. He looked at Wang Yu with some difficulty and said, Good man, what do you mean? I'm not sure." Wang Yu also looked at Wu Ji with a puzzled expression and said, "You want to exchange a few blows with him?" "I don't have the time for that." Wu Ji rolled his eyes at Wang Yu, the crazy fellow, and then said with a smile, "Little Blackbeard, it's not easy for you to come here. Don't be in a hurry to leave." Little Blackbeard? Hearing the name Wu Ji, everyone was speechless. Blackbeard saw Wu Ji's lecherous smile, and his whole body trembled. What do you want?" "I don't want." Wu Ji waved his hand and said, "I'm not interested in seafood, but I think I can help you." "Help me?" Blackbeard was dumbfounded. His instincts told him that this smiling fellow in front of him was extremely dangerous, and it was best to kill him with one punch. However, Wang Yu was glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey. Blackbeard didn't dare to be rash and could only stop in his tracks. "What's the matter, old dog Wu Ji? Do you want to cook something for him on the spot?" Hearing Wu Ji's words, Mingdu touched on his sore spot. That's right. To place one's pride, also covered his mouth and laughed. Old dog Wu Ji's cooking skills are not bad. Yeah, he's a good cook at home. Good wife and good mother type. Whoever marries him will benefit. Little Blackbeard, just bring him along. The others also started to gang up on Wu Ji. Blackbeard was sweating as he listened and said in horror, This is against the rules." Wu Ji ignored everyone's ridicule, stared at Blackbeard, and said calmly, "How many channels are there in this sea?" "Currently, there's only this one," Blackbeard said honestly. This guy was not lying. Opening up a channel was not something that anyone could do. First, one had to be a city lord. Secondly, one had to complete the port transfer station quest. So far, there were only 2 city lords, Wang Yu and Dugu Juqian. Only Wang Yu had the ability to open up a channel. Wu Ji nodded and said, "If you can't rob this channel, you'll have to go fishing." Blackbeard was stunned for a moment, then nodded reluctantly. Obviously, it was a very embarrassing thing for a dignified pirate to go fishing instead of robbing. In that case, Wu Ji said, "You can rob this channel." "What?" Hearing Wu Ji say this, Wang Yu was shocked. "You're crazy. What was the purpose of opening up a channel? Wasn't it to let everyone have a good environment and then make money? Now, letting such a pirate rob as he pleased on the channel, wasn't this deliberately ruining the scene?" Even Blackbeard was a little confused about Wu Ji's request. No. Seeing Wang Yu's reaction, Wu Ji quickly waved his hand and smiled. "Robbing can't be done for free. We, Harbor City, have to take a percentage of the income. Also, our designated customers must not be robbed. Oh, I see. As expected of old dog Wuji, he's really evil. Chapter 1349. The world had darkness because there was light. Everything in the world was the same. There was only one route on the sea. Although Wang Yu was the owner of Port City and could collect taxes, most people would just take it. If the situation remained calm, everyone would think that this route was easy. As the city lord, Wang Yu was just a lucky person who did not have any achievements. Once this was the case, if the passing players had to fork out money, these people would most likely feel unhappy, and there would be a lot of trouble. If there was Blackbeard messing around on the route, the nature would be completely different. After all, Blackbeard was a level 60 dark gold epic boss. Without a team of 100 people or Wang Yu's ability, it would be quite difficult to deal with him. Now, Wuji's intention was to let Blackbeard be his fighter on this route. As long as the players had Xuanzhen's special pass, they would be safe and unimpeded. As for those without the pass, they could only resign themselves to fate. This way, not only would Blackbeard's employment problem be solved, but it would also increase Wang Yu's reputation. Think about it. People with Wang Yu's special pass wouldn't even dare to provoke an epic boss. This would definitely be a matter of respect. Most importantly, the special pass had to be bought with money. This was another additional source of income. The fundamental purpose of Blackbeard's existence was to allow the Quanjin sect to collect protection fees. It wasn't that Wang Yu's intelligence was low, it was his kindness that limited Wang Yu's thinking. This kind of black-hearted business could only be done by a black-hearted person like Wuji. Of course, although this behavior was black-hearted, it was the same as merchants controlling the market economy. In the game, Wuji's position was at most a dog dealer. As the saying goes, the willing takes the bait. If you don't buy it, no one is forcing you. No matter how righteous Wang Yu was, he couldn't find any fault with it. Blackbeard's character wasn't a good person. He didn't have any objections to Wuji's request. As long as he could let Blackbeard rob without breaking the system rules, he didn't care what Wuji had in mind. Besides, even if he objected, it would be useless. He couldn't beat him, and it wouldn't do him any good. After understanding Wuji's meaning, Blackbeard wiped the sweat off his forehead and said cheerfully, "That's easy. As long as it's easy." Wuji took out a contract and said, "Sign it." "Sign." Blackbeard took the contract and looked at it. His face turned green. Damn it, this was actually a follower contract. This mother of Asterisk Kerr really wanted him to sell his body. "What? You don't want to?" Wuji pointed at Wang Yu and said, "Then you can sign with him." Wang Yu's follower already had Dragon Emperor Dales. Adding Blackbeard was nothing. No matter how difficult this old guy was, could he be more difficult than Dragon Emperor Dales? Blackbeard's fear of Wang Yu was definitely from the bottom of his heart. The purpose of Wuji mentioning Wang Yu was to frighten Blackbeard. Blackbeard looked at the celestial Wang Yu and was shocked. "Can I ask why? What do you think?" Wuji said disdainfully. Blackbeard wasn't a good person. What if he didn't work? What if he robbed a customer with a pass to Xuanzhen? There had to be something to restrain him. Blackbeard patted his chest and said, "Don't worry. I'm still a man of my word." "Oh," Wuji said, "how much is your morality?" Blackbeard's face turned red. Meow. A pirate who robbed for a living was naturally cunning. Morality? That didn't exist. Blackbeard certainly didn't think that his eloquence could fool Wuji. He could only sign miserably and then signed his name on the contract. Wuji kept the contract and said, "Don't be unwilling. I'm doing this for your own good. If the system really found out, we players are the Jade Emperor. We don't have to bear any responsibility." Blackbeard was shocked again when he heard this. Indeed, what Wuji said was right. Although Blackbeard and Wuji's collusion couldn't be considered as breaking the rules of the system, as a boss colluding with a player to cheat money on the shipping route, it was definitely an act of stealing from the system. Once this kind of thing was found out by the system, it would definitely update the game and clear this bug. Wuji was a player. Since he didn't violate the rules, the game company definitely couldn't do anything to him. Blackbeard was different. He was just an insignificant small boss that could be destroyed in minutes. Now, Blackbeard and Wuji had signed a follower contract. Even if he was Wuji's private property, it was normal to rob and kill him in the game. Not to mention that Wuji let Blackbeard stir up trouble on the shipping route. Even if Wuji let Blackbeard run around naked, the system didn't have the right to destroy Blackbeard. After thinking about this, Blackbeard's mood became much better. As the saying goes, freedom is precious, but life is more valuable. What was better than being able to rob while still alive? After signing the contract, Blackbeard was beaten away by Wuji. After Blackbeard left, the sea returned to normal, and Wang Yu's ship continued to move forward. The place where Blackbeard appeared was the border between Harbor City and Immortal Abode Island. After the ship sailed on the sea for a few minutes, Wang Yu and the others received a system notification. You have crossed the border and entered Immortal Abode Island. Speaking of which, this shipping route really wasn't peaceful enough. After entering Immortal Abode Island, Wang Yu and the others encountered a few waves of ambushes from pirates. However, although there were many pirates, the strongest on this route should be Blackbeard. Blackbeard even sold himself when he met Wang Yu. The other pirates were naturally like chickens and dogs in front of Chuanjin and the others, unable to withstand a single blow. After clearing all the pirates along the way, Wang Yu's ship got closer and closer to Immortal Abode Island. An hour later, Wang Yu and the others saw the land of Immortal Abode Island. System notification. You discovered Saga City, obtained EXP. People who stayed in the air for a long time wouldn't feel that the air was very precious, and people who stayed on land for a long time wouldn't feel that the land was very good. However, after nearly 2 hours of sailing on the sea, Chuanjin's group of country bumpkins who had never seen water completely understood the horror of the sea. As soon as they saw the coastline, it was as if they had seen their long-lost relatives. They were so excited that tears filled their eyes, and they couldn't wait to drive the ship forward. However, at the same time, the Japanese players who were training on the coast also noticed a different ship floating on the sea. As the spawn place was a city near the sea, ships were a very common means of transportation for Saga City players. However, there was no such subclass as shipbuilding and rebirth, so the ships that players usually played with were small wooden boats. Chapter 1350. As the saying went, there must be a reason behind everything abnormal. This saying was vividly reflected in the game. Be it local or foreign players, or even a newbie like Wang Yu, they would have such an instinct. After all, in such a sudden situation, even if there was no hidden quest, there was an 80% chance that a boss would appear. In any case, it was definitely not a bad thing. Naturally, the Japanese players were no exception. At this time, when they saw a big ship that they had never seen before, they put down what they were doing and surrounded the beach. After the ship docked, the Chuanjin people calmly walked down from the ship. Seeing that the people who jumped down from the ship were players who were similar to them, the surrounding players were stunned. Damn, this is actually a player's ship. Since when can players make such a ship? Which guild does this belong to? Thinking of this, everyone subconsciously glanced at the chests of Wang Yu's group. As otakus, most people's understanding of the Japanese people was from some movies, and the group of wretched guys from Chuanjin knew this very well. Therefore, everyone instinctively felt that the Japanese players were wretched. Moreover, the group of people from Chuanjin did not like to be stared at like livestock. At this time, when a group of wretched men stared at their chests, they immediately felt uncomfortable. After all, there were 2 girls in the team. The hot-tempered Mingdu raised his staff and was about to slaughter them. Fortunately, Wuji reacted quickly and grabbed Mingdu. Don't cause trouble as soon as you come. Let's finish our business first. It was not that Wuji was afraid of trouble, but to cause trouble, one had to have a plan. Everyone was there with a quest. After all, Immortal Abode Island was not the local server, and they were unfamiliar with the place and people. They did not have the right time, place, and people. Wouldn't they be looking for trouble if they caused trouble before entering the city? Hearing Wuji's words, Mingdu put away his staff angrily. Wuji walked up and asked, "Excuse me, is there an NPC called Carl here?" The fastest way for players to level up was by completing quests. Normally, players could accept quests from NPCs located in various corners of main cities. Carl held the Harbor City seal and received taxes from the entire city. He definitely wasn't an unknown civilian NPC. As long as he wasn't a civilian, the players in Saga City shouldn't be unfamiliar with such an NPC, who knew that after these people heard Wuji's words, their faces would reveal a shocked expression, and then they would start shouting. Obviously, these guys were also curious about the sudden appearance of foreigners. "What are you talking about?" Mingdu was dumbfounded. With Mingdu's understanding of the language system of the Neon people, he was only familiar with words such as Yamadai and Kamidii. He couldn't understand the more common words. "I'm not sure. He's probably marveling at our identity," Wuji said as he rubbed his chin. Wang Yu, on the other hand, opened the game's settings menu, glanced at it, and said speechlessly, "This game doesn't have a simultaneous interpretation function." Simultaneous interpretation technology had been popularized for more than a decade. It was strange that such a high-tech game like Rebirth didn't have this function. "I don't care," Wuji said. In order to distinguish different groups in the game, language independence is the most direct way. In many previous games, different factions have different languages, let alone different countries. Language barrier? Then what about our quest? Yang Na asked. Ingzhou Island had a total of 3 roads and 6 main cities. Saga City was only one of the cities. Since Carl appeared in Ingzhou Island, there was a possibility that all 6 cities existed. There was a sea of NPCs in the 6 cities. If they didn't have a language barrier, wouldn't it take a few months for a dozen people to search one by one? "Sanair, it's up to you." Wuji looked back at Bao San, and Bao San nodded and went forward. Bao San had studied in Neon, and this guy was proficient in 8 languages. He was said to be able to argue with the 8-Nation Alliance, so Neon was naturally not a problem. As expected, once an expert made a move, it was easy to tell. After Bao San walked in front of the Neon players and said a bunch of things, the Neon players had a look of understanding on their faces. When it came to Neon, Mr. Nyo's level was about the same as Mingdu's. Even if I understood it, the others wouldn't understand it too well. So the conversation after that was all in Mandarin. Not bad. Let's pretend that the entire universe is speaking Chinese. Although Bao San didn't like to talk normally, he was proficient in 8 languages, so his social skills were definitely not weak. After a while of talking and laughing, Bao San and the Neon players became friends. Then, Bao San struck while the iron was hot. "Excuse me, is there an NPC called Carl in Saga City?" Carl. When the players heard this name, they were about to say something. Suddenly, the short warrior that Mingdu wanted to kill with thunder came over and interrupted them. "Never heard of him." Then, the warrior waved at the other players around him and said, "Get out of here, don't surround me. Even if you pay, I can still not let you stay here." The players seemed to be very afraid of this short warrior. After being yelled at by this guy, they quickly shrank their necks and scattered. "What's going on?" The others in Xuanzhen didn't understand what Bao San and the Neon players were talking about, but they weren't stupid. They saw the short warrior's words and actions and could roughly guess what was going on. When it came to causing trouble, Mingdu was always the most active one. Seeing this scene, he jumped up and down and asked, "Is this kid pretending? Do you want me to kill him?" As soon as Mingdu's voice fell, the short warrior moved next to Bao San and raised his head. "Are you Chinese?" This guy wasn't big, and his tone was full of arrogance. "That's right." Bao San nodded lightly. "Umph." The short warrior snorted and said, "This is a mortal abode island. You're not welcome here. Please go back." As the saying went, dogs that bite don't like to bark. Bao San was a man of few words, but it didn't mean that he had a good temper. Bao San was already very unhappy that this short warrior had interrupted his conversation with the others. Now that he even dared to chase him away, Bao San naturally couldn't tolerate it. The local server was so big, but he had never seen a player who dared to speak to Xuanzhen like this. It was just a small place like a mortal abode island, and they dared to be so arrogant. Had they not heard of the saying, "a fierce dragon crossing the sea"? Hee hee. Bao San smiled and slowly pulled out the celestial sword. He stretched out his hand and placed it on the short warrior's neck. He tilted his ear and said, "What did you say? I didn't hear you clearly." The Chuanjian people had played together for so long, and they had great teamwork. Seeing Bao San's posture, the others also took out their weapons. Chapter 1351. This was how the people of Chuanjian conducted themselves. If you respected me, I would respect you tenfold. If you dare to be disrespectful, don't blame me for being ruthless. This group of outlaws had always been decisive in killing in the game. After playing the game for so long, their temperament was very different from those players who followed the rules. This group of guys all had a murderous aura. As soon as they took out their weapons, their fierce temperament directly shocked everyone. The short and strong warrior dared to drive Bao San away not because he was easily intimidated by someone's aura, but he was not a fool either. Although the people of Chuanjian did not activate the special effects of their equipment, whether it was Bao San's deity sword or Yin Lao Air's deity shield, they were all divine weapons. It was not difficult to see that they were high-end goods from their appearance. Coupled with the fierce temperament of the people of Chuanjian, the short and strong warrior was immediately terrified. He suppressed his fear and said, "You Chinese people, don't you know that this is the territory of the Black Dragon Society?" In fact, these were all polite words. It seemed to be a show of force, but in fact, it was to tell the people of Chuanjian that he was terrified and that they would spare his worthless life for the sake of their guild. If these words were directly heard by the people of Chuanjian, they were not unreasonable people. However, the two sides did not speak the same language, so they could not understand it all. What did he say? Is he shouting, "Grandpa, spare my life"? Mingdu saw the short and strong warrior babbling and asked Bao San in confusion. Bao San translated. He said he is from the Black Dragon Society, and this is their territory. Well, after Bao San translated, although the meaning was the same, the context was directly reversed. It was directly understood by Mingdu as a provocation. These guys at Chuanjian were all obedient donkeys. If you gave in, they might let you go. Who were they trying to scare by using their own guild so forcefully? Moreover, the person asking the question was Mingdu, a guy who did not know how to hold back. As soon as Bao San said this, Mingdu immediately became angry. He roared, "Black your mother!" He raised his staff, and a bolt of lightning fell from the sky, directly turning the short and strong warrior into ashes. Seeing that Mingdu had killed the stout warrior so easily, the players at the seaside were dumbfounded. Then, they dropped the monsters, put away their weapons, and turned to run. This time, it was Chuanjian's turn to be puzzled. The neon players were too timid. Why were they running when they weren't being targeted? At this moment, one of the players who had been chatting with Bao San ran over and said, "Why aren't you guys running?" "Run? Why are you running?" Bao San was puzzled. The player said, "Your friend just killed someone from the Black Dragon Society. Let's go. It's best if we leave this place and go back to your place." After saying that, the player ran away without looking back. They were strangers who met by chance, so it was already benevolent of him to give him a reminder. He couldn't just wait to die with them, right? Black Dragon Society? After hearing the name again, Bao San rubbed his chin and asked Jian Daoxua, "Do you know the guild called Black Dragon Guild?" Famed Kendo had been on the forums for a long time and was Chuanjian's main source of information. "You should have heard of this guild. Black Dragon Society?" Jian Daoxua thought for a while and said, "This name sounds familiar, but I don't do business with Neon, so I don't know much about it. As you all know, Neon people prefer standalone games, and there are very few capable people in online games." "I know this guild." At this moment, Wuji said, "Black Dragon Society is the strongest guild in Immortal Abode Island. They are very powerful. Almost all the areas in Immortal Abode Island are under their control." "Are you talking about Immortal Abode Island or Saga City?" Bao San turned his head and asked. No matter how small Immortal Abode Island was, it still had 6 main cities. A guild wanted to cover the sky with one hand? Of course, it's Immortal Abode Island. Wuji Island. These guys are quite overbearing. Ordinary players have to pay them a leveling fee even when they go out of the city to level up. Holy sh*t. Are you serious? Hearing Wuji's words, everyone revealed looks of shock and disbelief. Everyone was a veteran player, and Chuanjin had seen a lot of big guilds bullying ordinary players without guilds. However, at most, they would occupy the better leveling areas and give priority to their own people. When they were not using it, they would also take the initiative to give it to others. As for the places to collect money, it could only be places like the mine where independent players earn money. After all, the monsters in a mine were cleared by the big guilds, so it was reasonable for them to ask for some labor fees. However, it was a bit too much for the Black Dragon Society to collect money for leveling up. Everyone came to play the game and paid for their cards. Why did they have to pay for the other? Wouldn't this be a two-way charge? This affected the gaming experience of the players, and the game company didn't come out to deal with it? There's no other way. Wuji spread his hands and said, there aren't many online game players in Neon, and the Black Dragon Society accounts for nearly half of them. Ordinary players don't dare to go against them. The game company still has to rely on these people to survive, so they can only turn a blind eye. That was true. Most people's personalities were submissive, especially with the low employment rate of Neon people. Anyone who came to the game to make a living basically had a hard time surviving. It was not easy to find an environment where they could make money. Even if they were bullied, they could make do. Only a small number of people really dare to resist or give up the game. The goal of the game company was to make money. Of course, they would not offend the majority of people for the sake of a small number of people. Sigh, mud really can't help a wall. Thinking of this, everyone could not help but shake their heads. Kendo was puzzled and asked Wuji, by the way, how do you know so much about the Black Dragon Society? I asked. Wuji smiled. Bao-san was surprised and said, you have friends in Neon? Why didn't I know? Hee hee. Wuji laughed and said, I asked evildoers run wild. Everyone, to move unhindered in the national server. Evildoers run wild status was almost the same as the Black Dragon Society's status in Neon. As a qualified professional businessman, everything he did had to keep up with the times. Since the system had merged the world's data, Evildoers Run Wild would definitely know himself and his enemy. Therefore, it was reasonable for him to get the information of the Black Dragon Society and other biggest competitors in other servers. What do we do now? Go back. Chun Xiang, who had been silent, looked at the ship behind him and asked. Since the Black Dragon Society's influence covered the entire Ingzhou Island, it was obvious that this group of people was definitely not to be trifled with. If they killed their people, there would be more trouble in the future. Chapter 1352. In the Hero's Continent, Yu Huicheng was the foundation of Chuanjin. Once they returned to Yu Huicheng, Chuanjin would be invincible. Even without Yu Huicheng to rely on, the Hero's Continent had 15 regions and 300 main cities. To move unhindered even if they offended the Black Dragon Gang, let alone offending the Black Dragon Gang, they could still run away. It was not like Chuanjin had never done something like wandering around the world. However, Ingzhou Island was only half the size of the Hero's Continent. The people of Chuanjin were passers-by who came here by ship. If the ship was destroyed, they would not be able to escape even if they wanted to in such a small place. No matter how powerful Wang Yu was, he was not a super scion. Could he slaughter the entire island by himself? Even if the Black Dragon Gang players were willing, the system would not allow it. It doesn't matter. Wuji thought for a while and said, we'll go look for the NPCs. Let Old Cow guard the ship here. Finding NPCs had little to do with a player's strength. It mainly relied on experience. In terms of game experience, Wang Yu was a complete noob. Naturally, he could not find NPCs as well as the others in Chuanjin. Moreover, this ship was the most crucial means of transportation for everyone to go home. If the mission was not completed, they would at most lose some money. If they could not return to the Hero's Continent, they would lose more than just money. Therefore, they must find the most reliable person to guard their home. Obviously, in the hearts of the people of Chuanjin, no one was more reliable than Wang Yu. Wang Yu was naturally aware of this, so he did not object to Wuji's arrangement. After Wuji explained to everyone, everyone dispersed and left the beach, leaving only Wang Yu and his ship on the coast. At the same time, the short warrior who was killed by Mingdu's lightning was resurrected at the resurrection point in Saga City. As soon as he resurrected, he quickly opened his friends list, clicked on a player with the ID key, and sent a message. "Leader, are you there?" "Yeah." Very quickly, Kiet replied. "What's wrong, Sky Maple?" Don't be fooled by this short and muscular warrior's ugly appearance. His ID was quite unique. He was called Amakai Jushiru, and he exuded a strong Chinibyu aura. They were neon people. Chinibyu was a racial talent. Everyone understood the spirit. "I was just killed," Sky Maple Jushiru said solemnly. "You were killed?" Hearing the short warrior's words, Kiet asked, "Who is so bold as to dare to kill a member of our Black Dragon Society?" Actually, dying in the game was very normal. The short warrior wasn't an important character in the guild, so dying once wasn't a big deal. However, being killed by someone else was a different story. Before beating a dog, one had to look at its master. If a Black Dragon Guild member was killed, it wasn't just a matter of their lives. It was a matter of the Black Dragon Guild's reputation and dominance. Ever since the game was launched, the Black Dragon Guild had controlled the entire Ingzhou Island. It could be said that they could cover the sky with one hand. How could anyone dare to go against the Black Dragon Guild? Amakai Jushiru said somewhat gloomily, "Those people should have brought equipment to hide their identities. The kill records don't have their names." "Oh," Kiet asked again. Then, "Do you remember what they looked like?" "That's what I wanted to tell you." Team leader, Amakai Jushiru said, "That was a group of Chinese people." "Chinese people?" Kiet said in surprise. Ingzhou Island is separated from Hero's continent by the sea. "How did they get here?" "By boat, of course." Amakai Jushiru said, "That boat is by the sea now. Should we go?" Hearing Amakai Jushiru's words, Kiet's eyes lit up. From the conversation between Amakai Jushiru and Kiet, it wasn't hard to tell that this kid didn't take the fact that he had been killed to heart. After all, he was an adult, and everyone knew what was important. If it were any other time and Amakai Jushiru had been killed, he would most likely get Kiet to bring people to seek revenge for him. However, this time, he had discovered something more important than his reputation: Wang Yu's boat. Although Ingzhou Island was also divided into a regional server, it was just an island no matter what. The Black Dragon Guild's players occupied half of the entire Japanese server, and it was obvious that there were more wolves than meat. In the past, the server had been set up this way, and the Black Dragon Guild's players could do nothing about it. However, now that the data had been merged and all the servers had been connected, this meant that the Japanese players could also cross servers and develop in Hero's continent. However, although the data had been merged, the traffic had not been merged. It was no different from a fool's dream for the Japanese players to use their canoes to cross the sea. Therefore, the Black Dragon Guild was now also trying their best to find a way to cross servers. Now, just as they were about to sleep, someone sent them a pillow. The boat of Wang Yu's group was clearly a timely help. As long as they could get their hands on this boat, getting a promotion, a raise, and reaching the pinnacle of their lives would be a matter of minutes. As for the small matter of being killed, it was nothing compared to this. After being pleasantly surprised, Kiet thought about it and asked Amakai Jushiru, "How many Chinese people are there? How strong are they?" Amakai Jushiru frowned and recalled the island. "Only a dozen or so people in total. They shouldn't be weak. That magician is very strong, able to kill me instantly." "Oh." Hearing Amakai's words, Kiet replied indifferently, but he did not think much of it in his heart. After all, Amakai Jushiru was not considered an expert in Kiet's eyes, and magicians were a class that countered warriors. The person who could kill this kid instantly could not be considered an expert. Thinking of this, Kiet said again, "Where are you now? I'll bring people to look for you right now." "Okay," Amakai Jushiru said. "I'm at the resurrection point at Saga Beach. Come quickly." The Japanese people were very efficient. A few minutes later, Kiet brought a team to the resurrection point and met Amakai Jushiru. Amakai looked at the players behind Kiet and said in a soft voice with some dissatisfaction, "Leader, those people are all experts. You're only bringing these 10 people?" "Duh," Kiet said. "Our team only has these people. If we look for others, will we even have a chance to snatch this boat? Besides, other than you, everyone in our team is a level 50 expert. How can we not deal with a few Chinese people?" But Amakai Jushuru still wanted to say something. However, Kiet interrupted him impatiently. "All right, cut the crap. Bring us there quickly." "All right." Although Amakai Jushuru was rather worried, what Kiet said made sense. Therefore, he could only lead the group toward the beach. On the beach, everyone from Chuanjin had already left to gather information. It was really boring for Wang Yu to guard the boat alone. As a northerner, Wang Yu did not really like to play in the water. Therefore, he rolled up his trousers and sat on the beach like a child building a sandcastle. Marshall got above. If he knew that Wang Yu was using his divine weapon as a tool to build a sandcastle, he would definitely be infuriated. Just as Wang Yu was entertaining himself, Amakai Jushuru led a team and appeared not far away from Wang Yu. P.S. Win 10. Chapter 1353. At the seaside, the players had already run away, leaving only Wang Yu. A 186 tall and sturdy man sitting on the beach playing with the sand was definitely eye-catching. Sky Maple Jushuru and his group immediately noticed Wang Yu. Looking at Wang Yu, who was concentrating on the construction work, Kiet was a little dumbfounded. He pointed at Wang Yu and asked Sky Maple Jushuru, "This is the expert player from China?" Sky Maple Jushuru stared at Wang Yu and said hesitantly, "I think so." Kiet shook his head and said disdainfully, "Seems like it's a waste to bring so many people." Originally, Kiet had thought that the Chinese player who had come from afar would be some kind of expert, so he had specially called the team over. Now that he saw it, it turned out to be half a retard. To be insta-killed by such a person, it seemed like Sky Maple Jushuru was even weaker than he had imagined. "Hey, go over and take a look." Kiet raised his chin at Sky Maple Jushuru. "Okay." At this moment, Sky Maple Jushuru had also treated Wang Yu as a weakling. When he heard Kiet's order, he unhurriedly walked up to Wang Yu, drew his weapon, pointed it at Wang Yu, and shouted, "Hey, Chinese, I've taken a liking to this ship of yours. Hurry up and pack your things and scram. Otherwise, I'll chop you up too." Sky Maple Jushuru was babbling in Japanese, so Wang Yu naturally couldn't understand him. However, Sky Maple Jushuru had pointed a knife at him, which was clearly impolite. Moreover, the eyes of the people behind him were filled with killing intent. Wang Yu had received a strict education since he was young, so he didn't have the temperament to bully the weak and cause trouble. Facing Sky Maple Jushuru's actions, Wang Yu didn't even bat an eyelid. He habitually ignored him and continued to pat the sand off his hands. Seeing that Wang Yu ignored Sky Maple Jushuru, Kiet and the others behind him couldn't help but burst into laughter. B****. Being laughed at by his comrade, Jushuru couldn't keep his face straight away. He angrily walked to the side of the house that Wang Yu had almost finished building, raised his foot, and stomped on it. However, before his feet could touch the ground, he suddenly felt as if he had stepped on a rock, unable to descend an inch. Sky Maple Jushuru hurriedly lowered his head to take a look, only to see that the blockhead had extended his right hand forward and forcefully supported his leg. His other hand unhurriedly completed the final step of the sandcastle. Then, with a wave of his hand, he flattened the sandcastle that had been built. The most satisfying part of building a sandcastle was the last step. Wang Yu had been busy for half a day, so how could he let others take advantage of him? Not far away, Kiet's heart trembled when he saw this. Although Amakai Jushuru was only a warrior and did not specialize in footwork, and he did not use any skills in that kick, warriors were, at the end of the day, a strength class. For him to be able to casually block that kick, his strength attribute was clearly not low. "You dare to look down on me? Go to hell." Although Amakai Jushuru's strength was not much, he was very decisive in his attacks. The Black Dragon Gang had absolute control over immortal Abode Island. As a member of the Black Dragon Gang, Amakiai Jushru had never been looked down upon like this before. Now that he was once again ignored by Wang Yu, how could Amakiai Jushru endure this? Without another word, he swung the long saber in his right hand at Wang Yu's head. Wang Yu did not like to bully the weak, but that did not mean that he liked to be bullied. Since his opponent did not know what was good for him, Wang Yu was naturally happy to send him on his way. Wang Yu simply extended his left hand forward and grabbed Amakiai Jushru's wrist, which was holding onto the long saber. Then, he put two fingers together and squeezed. Wang Yu's squeeze was extremely precise. Amakiai Jushru's right hand trembled and involuntarily opened up, causing the long saber to fall from his hand. At that moment, Wang Yu caught Amakiai Jushru's long saber with his right hand and pulled Amakiai Jushru to the ground with his left hand, pressing his head into the sand. Then, he raised the saber in his right hand and chopped off Amakiai Jushru's head. Before the tragic Amakiai Jushru could react to what had happened, he had already turned into a white light and reincarnated. Meanwhile, Wang Yu sat on the ground from the beginning to the end. He did not even move his body. The gold-tier weapon, Kikuikamanji? This kid sure has a lot of stuff, coming all the way back just to give me equipment. How thoughtful of him. After beheading Amakiai Jushru, Wang Yu teased him with a smile and casually tossed Amakiai Jushru's samurai sword into his backpack. Gold-tier equipment was a hot commodity at the moment. Even if Wang Yu could not use it, he could still sell it for money. Upon seeing this scene, Kiet and the others, who were not far away, had their jaws dropped to the ground. It must be known that this was not the time when the game had just been launched. When the game had just been launched, the average player's HP was not high, and being insta-killed was a common occurrence. Now, the average level of the players was around level 50, and even the archer with the lowest HP had tens of thousands of HP. Moreover, Amakiai Jushru was a warrior with coarse skin and thick flesh. Now, he had been insta-killed by someone with a casual slash. What kind of concept was this? Even Black Dragon Guild, which had many experts, had never seen such a ferocious character. What made the Kiet members even more fearful was that the weapon in Wang Yu's hand was snatched from Amakiai Jushru. In the game, weapons were many times more precious than one's life. Stealing someone else's weapon was 2F** king terrifying. It cannot be helped. Ingzhou Island was just a small foreign country, and it did not have much experience. Moreover, even the local players would be shocked when they saw Wang use terrifying methods for the first time. Later, after a long time, the Kiet members came to their senses. One of them with a small mustache carefully suggested, "Why don't we go back first and let the guild leader bring people over?" Originally, after seeing Wang Yu's methods, Kiet also had thoughts of leaving. However, after being reminded by his subordinates, Kiet's attitude became firm again. After all, the ship was undoubtedly very important to Black Dragon Guild. As long as Kiet could snatch the ship, it would definitely be a great contribution, and a promotion and salary increase would not be a problem. If the guild leader came, then the nature of the situation would completely change. Kiet would at most be a person who provided information. Promotion and salary increase would not be a problem at all. How could Kiet let go of such an opportunity in this day and age when the professional competition was so fierce? No matter how powerful the opponent was, it was just one person, right? Now that they had 10 people on their side, there was no reason for them to avoid the battle. Thinking of this, Kiet waved his hand and ordered his subordinates, "Everyone attack together. If we snatch the ship, we will all have share the credit." Although this was said, Kiet raised his shield, lowered his head, and charged at Wang Yu. When there was a great reward, there would definitely be brave men. The wisdom of China's ancient people from thousands of years ago was equally effective in any country. Chapter 1354. Since the Black Dragon Guild had been able to dominate Immortal Abode Island for so long, they naturally weren't a motley crew. It wasn't hard to see from Kiet's team that the Black Dragon Guild's class composition was very coordinated. Apart from Amakiai Jushru, who had been beheaded by Wang Yu, Kiet had a total of 10 people. There were 2 warriors mages, priests, and thieves, and archers, each with a different class. Although these people were all ordinary classes and didn't specialize in magic or physical damage like other teams, this composition had a crowd control, healing, and damage output. They didn't have any special characteristics or weaknesses, especially in PvP. After all, players weren't bosses. They only had a limited amount of health. Overly pursuing damage output would result in a data overflow, which was a waste. The Japanese had always been frugal, and this composition suited their nature. Kiet's team wasn't far from Wang Yu. At this moment, he used charge and arrived in front of Wang Yu in the blink of an eye. He raised his shield and used shield bash on Wang Yu. The game had been open for so long, and players leveled up slowly, so they had a thorough understanding of the skills of the various classes. As long as they weren't noobs, they could use some special combination techniques. Charge and shield bash were one such combination and technique. Both charge and shield bash were high-priority skills for shield warriors. However, the knockback effect of charge was very awkward in a battle where the opponent was outnumbered. It was easy for the opponent to escape. On the other hand, although shield bash could stun the target, the attack range was too short and the attack time was too long. This made it very easy for the opponent to dodge. Using shield bash when charge was about to end would allow one to stun the opponent from afar. It was a very practical technique. Of course, it depended on who the opponent was. Kiet, on the other hand, was quite unlucky. With the Black Dragon Guild's reputation and his status, he rarely piked other players. Most of his tricks were used in PV. Now that he had finally found an opponent, it was hell mode right off the bat. Facing Kiet, who was charging at him with a shield raised, Wang Yu remained seated on the ground. Seeing that Kiet was about to attack him, Wang Yu coldly snorted and extended his right leg, extending it beneath Kiet's feet. As everyone knew, legs were longer than arms. Moreover, the Neon people were short. Wang Yu, who was 186 meters tall, was like a giant in front of Kiet. When Wang Yu extended his leg, Kiet's shield was still half a meter away from Wang Yu. Bang! Wang Yu's kick landed on Kiet's calf without missing a beat. Kiet, who was moving at high speed, was kicked and immediately lost his balance. He fell to the ground in front of Wang Yu. Wang Yu slammed his hands on the ground and stood up. He then stomped on the back of Kiet's head. -57743. A huge damage value floated up above Kiet's head. As a shield warrior, Kiet had over 100,000 health. Wang Yu's stomp had only shaved away half of Kiet's health. However, because he had stomped on the back of Kiet's head, he was stunned. While stunned, players couldn't move or speak. However, they were still conscious. Kiet hurriedly opened the party channel and shouted, "Save me!" Just as Wang Yu was about to follow up with another stomp, the warrior behind Kiet arrived beside Wang Yu. The warrior activated Whirlwind Slash and slashed at Wang Yu. At the same time, the mages and archers in the distance fired their attacks at Wang Yu. Unhurriedly, Wang Yu took a step back. With a stretch of her hands, she pulled out two figures from the air. Then, with a forceful swing of her arms, she threw the two assassins out. One of the assassins blocked the arrows and spells and died in midair. The other smashed into the warrior who had used Whirlwind Slash and was instantly killed. The warrior also fell to the ground. When the two priests saw this, they hurriedly raised their staffs to heal Kiet and the other warrior. Wang Yu took a step forward and appeared behind the priest in a flash. She stretched out her hands and grabbed the back of the priest's head, slamming it into the ground. Thud! Thud! Two muffled sounds rang out. Wang Yu had slammed the heads of the two priests into the sand. At this moment, the archer and mage recovered from their daze. They hurriedly turned around and aimed their weapons at Wang Yu. Another volley of arrows and spells flew at him. Wang Yu did not dodge or evade. Instead, he grabbed the two arrows with both hands and threw them in front of him. Most of the mage's spells were non-directional. They would be triggered once they hit an object. At this moment, the two ice spikes were hit by the arrows. Poo-pee-you. The ice spikes turned into two clouds of blue mist. The fear in the archer and mage who were attacking Wang Yu gradually rose. Damn, at such a close distance, Catching the arrows with his bare hands was already shocking, but he could still throw them to concentrate the flying spells. Was he even human? We admit defeat. Facing such a terrifying opponent, the four of them had completely given up the idea of resisting. They put down their weapons and surrendered. A wise man submits to circumstances. After level 50, leveling up was as difficult as eating shit. 10% experience was still experience. Unfortunately, Wang Yu couldn't understand what they were talking about. He thought that the four of them were provoking him. He immediately bent down and placed his feet on the necks of the two priests. Bang! Bang! The two priests were trampled to death by Wang Yu on the spot. Wang Yu, on the other hand, used the recoil force to rush in front of the four people. She then extended her arms and instantly threw 4 punches at the 4 people's throats. The throat was a vital part of the body. The archer and mage didn't have much HP to begin with. How could they resist Wang Yu's fatal punch? Bang! 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 Another 4 rays of white light rose, and the ranged classes were all slaughtered by Wang Yu. That's right, this was a one-sided massacre. From the moment Wang Yu threw the 2 assassins to the moment the 6 ranged classes died, the entire process only took 3 or 4 seconds. Kiet's stun had just ended. Of course, when he stood up, only a warrior was left beside him. He didn't know if Wang Yu's kick had given him a concussion. Looking at the empty beach, Kiet was in a daze. He asked the warrior beside him in a daze, "Where are the others? Did they all run?" The warrior retreated in horror, pointing at Wang Yu, who was walking over. They were killed by that person. Kiet was shocked to hear this. Killed by him? How is that possible? That's 8. Before Kiet could finish his sentence, a long staff flashed past him. Duong. Hearing a violent collision sound, Kiet hurriedly turned around and saw that his last teammate had also turned into white light. Chapter 1355. This, seeing that his last teammate was killed by Wang Yu, Kiet's hair stood on end. His legs trembled, and he couldn't run even if he wanted to. He sat on the ground, paralyzed. In the game, dying once wasn't a big deal. However, fear and death were 2 different concepts. Facing a ruthless person like Wang Yu, Kiet had completely forgotten that he was in the game. Wang Yu wasn't the kind of person who liked to be ruthless and ruthless. After all, Wang Yu was a martial artist, not a soldier on the battlefield. He had been instilled with the idea of not going too far since he was young. As long as his opponent surrendered, Wang Yu would always give his opponent a chance to turn over a new leaf. There was no need to mention Kiet's current appearance. Even if Wang Yu couldn't understand what he was saying, he could see that Kiet was scared out of his wits. Killing such a person was beneath Wang Yu's dignity. Sigh so useless. Wang Yu shook his head and ignored Kiet, who was scared out of his wits. He turned around and continued to be bored. At this moment, an excited voice came from a distance. "Uncle Nyo, we found Carl." Wang Yu looked up and saw Gao jogging over from afar, waving his hand. He stopped in front of Wang Yu. Hearing to place one's pride's words, Wang Yu said in surprise, "Oh, you found Carl so quickly? Where is he?" Although Saga City was only a port city, not as big as Afterglow City, it was still a main city. There were at least thousands of NPCs in the city. It had only been 10 minutes since the Quanjin sex group left. How could they have found Carl so quickly? To place one's pride was about to answer when he saw Kiet sitting at Wang Yu's feet. He couldn't help but ask Wang Yu, "Is this grandson? I don't know him." Wang Yu shook his head and said, "He seems to be looking for trouble." It wasn't rare to find trouble in the game. After all, a powerful dragon couldn't crush a local snake. Some people would gather a group of people to rob you when they saw that you were new and had good equipment. In this world where the strong were respected, no one would find such a thing strange. Poor Akihito Jushiro died a little sullenly. He died twice, but Wang Yu didn't remember who he was. He actually thought that this group of people were looking for trouble. "Oh, then why did you keep him alive?" "Uncle Nyo, you're too kind." To place one's pride saw that Wang Yu didn't know Kiet and decisively kicked him. Wang Yu was just too lazy to kill people who didn't have the desire to fight. It wasn't that he was too kind. To place one's pride killed Kiat. Wang Yu didn't blame to place one's pride. Instead, he acted as if nothing had happened and asked, "Why didn't the others come back?" "They are busy in the city." To place one's pride said casually, "Busy in the city?" Wang Yu wondered, busy with what? AI. Don't mention it. To place one's pride said, "Actually, that Carl is the former city lord of Saga City. Now, he is locked up in the dungeon of Saga City by Black Dragon Guild. Wuji said that they were preparing to snatch him, so they asked me to inform you first." Inform? Just send a message. Why do they have to make a trip? Send a message? To place one's pride said, "Who would run errands if they could send a message? You haven't registered in Saga City yet. You're a foreigner, so the news is not good." Really? Wang Yu opened the Who channel in surprise and sent a message. The system replied humorously, "Sorry, you are not in the service area." Ha, interesting. Wang Yu sighed. He didn't expect there to be such a restriction in the game. Of course, it was reasonable to have such a restriction. After all, the integration of global data meant the unification of the world. However, it was unified in the game, but in reality, it was still two different countries. The purpose of doing this was to prevent people from using the game system to conduct espionage activities. The function of landing registration was equivalent to a visa to go abroad. Don't think that this kind of thing was far away from the game. In fact, this kind of thing could happen to everyone. So, don't scold this old man for being a retard. It wasn't easy for me to justify myself. Since there is nothing here. To place one's pride immediately said, "I will help you guard for a while. You go to the safe zone in the city and register." In any form of strategy, the transmission of information was the first priority. Wuji's group was stirring up trouble in the city. There would definitely be a big operation later. As the core of Chuanjin's battle, it was indeed troublesome for Wang Yu to not be able to transmit information. Okay, Wang Yu naturally knew this. He didn't talk nonsense with the place one's pride. He responded and left the beach. Registration was not a troublesome matter. Players only needed to go to the safe zone and set it up. After entering the city, Wang Yu found a respawn point nearby and registered his account. The guild channel was then unblocked. Just as Wang Yu was about to leave the city, he heard a familiar voice coming from not far away. "Come, come, come. Everyone, come and see." Wang Yu heard the voice and turned his head. He saw Mingdu not far behind him holding a large sign and shouting loudly. The sign was filled with Japanese characters. The neon characters were derived from the Huaxia characters. Since the Huaxia country had become increasingly powerful, not to mention the Asian countries, even Europe and the United States were learning Chinese characters. Therefore, although Wang Yu could not understand the language, he could still roughly understand the writing. The general meaning of the sign was, "Recruiting 1 gold per hour. If you want to earn money, come with me." Mingdu was a music student. His voice was very loud. When he shouted, the players who passed by all came to watch. There were not many people in the Japanese server, so the gold production was naturally far less than the Chinese server. Therefore, the exchange rate here was quite stable. 1 gold per hour was not high, but it was definitely not low. After all, most players couldn't earn that much money in an hour. However, the news of the Chinese killing the Black Dragon Triad players on the beach had spread like wildfire among the players in Saga City. Almost all players in Saga City knew about this except for the Black Dragon Triad members. Now that the Chinese were offering a high price to recruit people, everyone naturally had to think about it. Provoking the Black Dragon Triad for 1 gold? It was obviously not a wise choice. Therefore, when a few players with faster reactions saw that Mingdu was a Chinese, they instinctively curled their lips and turned to leave. At this time, Mingdu stood at a high place. When he saw people leaving, he raised his staff without saying a word. A bolt of lightning fell and killed a few people. Then he smiled and pointed at the sign in his hand. "Everyone!" Chapter 1356. After all, the players of Saga City were a group of people who were used to being bullied. With Mingdu's thunder, Everyone immediately understood what Mingdu meant. Obviously, Mingdu was using his actions to tell everyone, if you follow me, you will get money. If you don't follow me, you will die. To get money or to die, was there a choice like this? The players sighed and reluctantly stayed behind. This was the sorrow of ordinary players. Without strong strength and a strong organization, they could only survive in the cracks. They could not even control their own actions. It was like this in the game, not to mention in reality. After forcing the players to sign the contract, Mingdu opened the guild channel and shouted excitedly, "Wah! I recruited another 28 players. Now I have recruited more than 50 people." "Impossible," Baosin said incredulously. "You only know how to raise a sign, and you don't know Japanese. How can you recruit faster than me?" "TSK," Mingdu said disdainfully. "This kind of thing needs to be done. TSK, TSK, TSK." Seeing Mingdu's words, Wang Yu secretly sighed. This is called coercion and intimidation. Bullsh asterisk T. At this time, Mingdu said proudly, "Dachuan, how many have you recruited? An old thing like you probably didn't even recruit 10. Get lost." Chun Xiang replied fiercely and stopped talking. Obviously, Mingdu had poked his sore spot. Seeing Chun Xiang like this, Mingdu was even more proud and mocked again. "You bunch of scum." Just as Mingdu was feeling proud, Mingjian Daoshu suddenly asked, "Old Meng, how many are you?" "More than 100. Linglong Meng said lightly. "Xiao Xue is almost 150. Damn, that's fast." Mingjian Daoshu sent a surprised emoji. Hearing Linglong Meng's words, Mingdu was surprised and said, "Impossible. How can you two recruit so quickly?" "Oomph." Linglong Meng sneered. "This kind of thing depends on looks." Mingdu was stunned for a moment before he cursed. "Damn it, a bunch of stubborn Japanese dogs." It couldn't be helped. Look for justice. No matter how ruthless Mingdu was, he couldn't compare to the number of people the two beauties could attract. Wang Yu was confused by the conversation in the group. He couldn't help but ask, "Why are you recruiting so many people?" "Nonsense," Mingdu said. "Castellan Carl is now locked in the dungeon by the Black Dragon Triad. We have to break him out. Of course, we have to find someone to be the cannon fodder. Oh no, the vanguard to distract the guards in the dungeon." Oh, no wonder. Wang Yu understood. Wang Yu naturally knew the strength of the guards better than anyone else. These heaven-defying existences were not something that Xuanjin and the others could deal with easily. Fortunately, the guards generally had no intelligence. No matter how childish it was to distract them, they wouldn't be able to resist at all. It was a good idea to let the Saga City players distract them. However, what puzzled Wang Yu was that it was just to distract the guards. Was there a need to recruit so many people together? And with such fanfare, did they think the people of the Black Dragon Triad were dead? Thinking of this, Wang Yu asked again, "Where is Wuji?" "You want to explore the terrain," Bao San said. "Oh, is that so?" Wang Yu couldn't help but touch his chin. Then he opened his friends list and found Wuji to send a message. "What the hell are you doing?" Wuji was a guy who took care of everything. If Wang Yu could detect such a big flaw, Wu Ji would naturally be aware of it. Based on Wang Yu's understanding of Wu Ji, this brat's so-called luring the tiger away from the mountain was most likely a feint. Who knew what he was planning behind the scenes? Hee. After receiving Wang Yu's message, Wu Ji smiled and replied, "Come to the coordinates 1411, 2214, don't make it public." So mysterious? Seeing Wu Ji's reply, Wang Yu was slightly stunned. Everyone had curiosity, and Wang Yu was no exception. The more mysterious Wu Ji was, the more Wang Yu's heart itched. "I'm coming." After replying casually, Wang Yu walked toward the coordinates that Wu Ji said. Saga City was a main city that was only slightly larger than a town. Although he was unfamiliar with the place, Wang Yu could fly. In just 10 minutes, Wang Yu flew above a valley. At this moment, Wu Ji was standing on top of the valley, looking down from above. "Hey, what are you doing here?" Wang Yu folded his wings and landed beside Wu Ji. Wu Ji pointed to the valley without turning his head and said, "This road is the only way to Yamatai City." "Yamatai City? Where is that?" Wang Yu asked curiously. That is the lair of the Black Dragon Triad. 80% of the Black Dragon Triad's players are gathered there, Wu Ji said lightly. Don't tell me you want to uproot the Black Dragon Triad. As soon as Wu Ji said this, Wang Yu's head was full of black lines. Although Wu Ji was weak, he was extraordinarily daring. Previously, he dared to cause trouble to the Three Evils village with only 6 people from Chuanjin. At this time, Chuanjin had recruited hundreds of people. Even if Wu Ji said he wanted to challenge the whole world, Wang Yu would not think that he was joking. No, no, no. Wu Ji waved his finger and said, the players in Saga City cannot be trusted. Our ultimate goal is to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Lure the tiger away from the mountain? Wang Yu frowned and said, are you looking for those hundreds of people to lure the guards? The Black Dragon Triad's people are not decorations. Although Wang Yu's limbs were well developed, to be able to practice martial arts to this point, he was definitely not a stupid person. For the current situation, Wang Yu was very clear. Even if the guards were successfully lured away and Carl was dragged out of the prison by Chuanjin, it was only one step of success. After all, no matter how few players there were in Saga City, the size of the Black Dragon Triad was still in the tens of thousands. The group of people that Ming Du and the others gathered were used to being bullied by the Black Dragon Triad. When they encountered the Black Dragon Triad's players, they would not dare to resist. No matter how fierce the Chuanjin's people were, surrounded by tens of thousands of people with Carl, they would never be able to leave Saga City. Of course, I know that they are not decorations. Wu Ji smiled. Then you still dare to do this. Wang Yu was even more puzzled. Because the tiger that I lured is not the guards, but the Black Dragon Triad. Black Dragon Triad? Yes. Wu Ji said, I dare to conclude that the Black Dragon Triad will definitely take Carl through this road. Why? Wang Yu curled his lips. The Black Dragon Triad has tens of thousands of people. Is it necessary to take Carl away when facing a few hundred people head-on? Wu Ji said with certainty, because they don't know our ultimate goal and the Black Dragon Triad's current overlord mentality. Oh, when Wu Ji said this, Wang Yu's thoughts gradually became clear. Seeing that Wang Yu had an insight into his tactics, Wu Ji said, so you just stay here and guard. Chapter 1357. Saga City wasn't that big. In this era where information was transmitted at an explosive speed, a small matter could be spread in a short time. The Black Dragon Gang had a large number of people, and the Chuanjin Gang was recruiting players with great fanfare. Such a high-profile behavior naturally couldn't be hidden from the Black Dragon Gang's eyes. At this time, the one who was the angriest was the highest leader of the Black Dragon Society's Swiss City branch, Huoliuya. Even though the Black Dragon Guild was the biggest guild in Immortal Abode Island, as the person in charge of unifying Immortal Abode Island in the short term, the Black Dragon Guild actually relied on their numbers. However, everyone knew that it was easy to lose discipline when there were too many people. Back then, the Three Fiends village had developed for so many years, but it only had a few 100,000 people. In the end, due to internal conflicts, the Chuanjin police took advantage of them. The Black Dragon Guild had half of Immortal Abode Island's players, and they were even more powerful than the Three Evils village in the past. With such rapid development, there were naturally all sorts of problems within the guild, so the Black Dragon Guild was extremely unconfident in their rule. Only one's own feet would know that their shoes were broken. As one of the upper echelons of the Black Dragon Gang, Huoliuya knew better than anyone that the Black Dragon Gang wasn't as glorious as it seemed on the surface. Not to mention the Quanjun sect recruiting with great fanfare. Even if the players from Saga City gathered together, Huoliuya would feel that they were going against the Black Dragon Guild. Although Chuanjin's people hadn't made it clear that they were going to attack the Black Dragon Guild, Huoliuya was still restless. He hurriedly summoned the Black Dragon Guild's elite players to his office. Kiet was among them. Boss, what's the matter? Why did you call us here in such a hurry? I'm leveling up. At this time, it was the peak period for leveling. The core players of the Black Dragon Guild, who had been forcibly summoned to the office, were obviously in a bad mood. Don't worry about leveling up, Liu comforted everyone and said, "Haven't you heard that someone in Saga City is recruiting players?" "I heard about it." Everyone said disapprovingly, "What does it have to do with us?" "Did you see that? This is what it means when one is not in a position. One should not meddle in politics." Like many profit-making guilds on the server, Black Dragon Guild operated purely as a company. In the face of benefits, everyone had their own duties, and it was impossible for them to become true friends. As a city lord, Liuya's biggest job was to manage the city well. If the players didn't topple the Black Dragon Guild's rule, then he would have accomplished his duty. Moreover, these core players were not the highest leaders of Saga City. They usually thought about how to climb up and get a higher salary to support their families. Other than that, they did not consider anything else. The people from Xuanzhen didn't say what they were going to do. Even if they were really targeting the Black Dragon group, this group of people with ulterior motives wouldn't take it to heart. After all, this wasn't their job. The fact that they didn't take advantage of the opportunity to smash Liuya's back was already kind enough. It wasn't just the Black Dragon Guild. The biggest drawback of a corporate guild was this. Although everyone could strictly obey the leader, they couldn't achieve the play-based nature of a gaming guild. It was impossible for everyone to unite as one. But there was no other way. The Black Dragon Guild had developed too quickly, and their discipline wasn't strong. If it weren't for the corporate nature of using money, perhaps the branches in each city would have long fallen apart and established themselves as kings. Liuya felt quite depressed when he heard his subordinates' nonchalant words. He sighed and said, "I heard that the person who recruited the players was a Chinese from the hero's continent." Chinese? The moment Liuya said this, the expressions of the people who didn't care about this matter became serious. For so many years, there had always been hatred between Huaxia and Neon. Everyone knows the specifics. If any of you don't know, Teacher Neo can explain it to you, but I don't think there is a need. In reality, China was already a powerful country in the world. Although the Chinese loved peace and didn't like to start wars, the players were still happy to vent their emotions on the internet. This was especially true for online games. The Chinese players had always been a mudslide in the online gaming world. Back in the day, the Red Coat Army was a terrifying existence to the players of the other world. Not to mention the fact that the Japanese players were weak in the online gaming world. Even the strong European and American players were beaten to the ground by the Chinese players. Now that they heard that the Chinese were recruiting players in Saga City, it wasn't hard to guess what they were going to do next. At this time, a mage called Gu Lingwan, who was standing next to Liuya, thought for a moment and said in surprise, "Those Chinese aren't going to attack Saga City, are they?" "I don't think so." Liuya shook his head and said, "If they were really going to attack a main city, they definitely wouldn't be recruiting players in Saga City. No matter what, the players in Saga City were Japanese. This was a national matter, and most people knew who they should help. Even if they didn't know, Xuanzhen wouldn't trust them. Then what are they going to do?" Everyone was at a loss. If they weren't going to attack a main city, then why were they gathering so many players? To fight a boss? No, the hero's continent was huge. Was there need to cross the ocean to fight a boss in this desolate place? Liuya rubbed his chin and said, "It might be a quest." It had to be said that Liuya was the boss of Saga City, so he had some skill. He immediately pointed out the essence. Indeed, in the game, the only thing that could allow people to cross the ocean was a quest. If it was a quest, why didn't they bring their own people? Why are they recruiting players in Saga City? Gu Lingwan asked. "You're right." Liuya frowned and said, "This is what I'm worried about. In most cases, the difficulty and goal of a quest would be clearly stated. In that case, Xuanzhen could have brought their most trusted companions. But now, Xuanzhen was recruiting players in Saga City. Liuya was confused. The unknown was often the scariest. Tisk. Most people express their disdain for Liuya's groundless fears. Since it's a quest, what do we have to worry about? Let's go. Everyone, go level up. That's right. The boss is like this. Last time, when the Sea Fish Gang held a small gathering, he was scared to death. He's afraid that he won't be able to keep his position. Hell, what a cowardly fellow. The others who hadn't expressed their opinions also followed suit and changed the topic to disdain for Huolioya. Just as everyone was laughing at Huolioya, Kiet, who had been silent in the corner, suddenly stood up and said, "I know what they want to do." Chapter 1358. When Kiet stood up, the office became silent. Everyone's gaze was attracted to him. Although Kiet also had the qualifications to sit here, his status in the Black Dragon Guild wasn't high. Compared to the others sitting here, he was like a bystander. He didn't have the right to speak at all. In the past, he was an extremely quiet existence. After working together for so long, this was the first time Kiet had taken the initiative to speak. However, Leo wasn't surprised that Kiet stood up. After all, Kiet's territory was Saga City's port, which was the only way for Chinese players to get to Saga City. The first person to come into contact with Xuanjin was definitely someone from Kiet. Even if Kiet didn't speak, Huolioya would have asked him. Seeing Kiet stand up, Huolioya nodded and calmly asked, "Oh, what do they plan on doing?" Kiet reported truthfully, "These Chinese people once inquired about City Lord Carl on the beach, and my subordinates even had a dispute with them because of this matter." City Lord Carl? Hearing Kiet say this, everyone in the office was surprised. Your subordinates didn't hear wrong, right? Is it really Carl? It can't be. I just fought with the Chinese people and heard them repeatedly say Carl's name. Everyone came to a realization. No wonder they're recruiting players. They've already found out where Carl is being held. Carl being imprisoned by the Black Dragon Guild wasn't a secret in Saga City, so it wasn't strange for people to find out. Huolioya frowned and said, "Why are they looking for Carl? Is it to kill him or to save him?" Carl wasn't very strong, and he was even a bit weak. Otherwise, as a city lord, he wouldn't have been imprisoned by the Black Dragon Guild's players. However, this noob was very important to the Black Dragon Guild. This was because Huolioya was the same as Wang Yu. He was only a city lord in name, and he didn't have a city lord seal. Since Carl was able to become a city lord, it was obvious that he was also an intelligent NPC. In order to restrict this type of NPC, the system also had restrictions on the setting of the city lord seal. An NPC without the title of city lord would not become a city lord even if he obtained the city lord seal. This was why Wang Yu dared to entrust Yu Huicheng to an NPC. It was also why Port City was a pirate's nest. In such a huge city, the pirates did not have the name of the Castellan, nor did they have the seal of the Castellan. They only had a rundown city that was not recognized by the people, so they could only rob passing ships to make a living. Because of this, whether Xuanjin wanted to rescue Carl or to kill Carl was completely different. Just as Wang Yu thought, there were tens of thousands of Black Dragon Triad players. If all of them went into battle, even if Xuanjin's group could handle 10,000 men, it would still be extremely difficult to escape with Carl, a burden. After all, a pig teammate was much more terrifying than a godly opponent. It was the same the other way around. If the goal of Xuanjin's group was to kill Carl, it did not matter how many people the Black Dragon Triad had. If they really fought, the more people there were, the more chaotic the situation would be. In such a situation, who could guarantee the safety of such a pig teammate? After all, Carl was related to the final ownership of Saga City. As long as the City Lord Seal did not fall into the hands of the Black Dragon Triad, the people of the Black Dragon Triad would not let Carl die easily. Therefore, in such a situation, it was necessary to figure out the opponent's goal. "I'm not sure about this." Kiet shook his head and then said, "But the only thing that is certain is that this group of people is definitely not easy to deal with." "Oh, how difficult." Hearing Kiet's words, everyone could not help but raise their eyebrows. Meow. Did he not look at the place when he said that? This is the office of the Black Dragon Triad. No matter how difficult it is to deal with, can it be more difficult than the Black Dragon Triad? At this point, a trace of fear appeared on Kiet's face. Then he sighed and said, "Does everyone know what is the weakest profession right now?" "Without a doubt. Grandmasters of Combat." Everyone replied without hesitation. It seemed that the gaming circle was the same everywhere. Everyone's eyes were more or less the same. In other servers, grandmasters of combat were still not popular. But just now, the team that I led was wiped out by a grandmaster of combat. Kiet showed a look of fear again. It seemed that the trauma left by Wang Yu would not be healed for a while. Hearing Kiet's words, everyone was stunned. They were all colleagues who worked together and were not strangers to each other. Everyone knew the strength of Kiet's team. Although they were not too strong, they were definitely not much weaker than other teams. Wasn't it nonsense to be wiped out by a grandmaster of combat? Huh? Gu Lingwan laughed and said, Kiet, I didn't expect your team to be this weak. Hee. Kiet knew that no one would believe his words. Facing Gu Lingwan's doubt, Kiet did not refute. Instead, he sat back and continued to remain silent. In any case, he had said what he needed to say. As for the final result, it was up to others. How about this? Seeing that Kiet was silent, Gu Lingwan volunteered, Boss, give me some people. I'll go to the dungeon and block those Chinese people. After this is done, just tell the headquarters to let me be your assistant. Perhaps it was a profession that added points to intelligence. Gu Lingwan really took advantage of this opportunity. I object. The dungeon is under the jurisdiction of our 13th division. Why should we let your 2nd division go? Boss, leave this task to me. I object. Don't you know how strong your 13th division is? In this situation, it should naturally be our 9th division. I object. Following Gu Lingwan's recommendation, the core experts in the office began to quarrel with each other. For a moment, the office was in a mess. The nature of disunity was obvious. Only Kiet and Huolioya sat there quietly as they watched the commotion. Of course, Kiet did not want to get involved. Huolioya already had his own ideas. When everyone was tired of quarreling, Huolioya slowly said, Have you quarreled enough? Boss, who should we send? Everyone asked in unison. This was a performance, and no one wanted to miss this opportunity. Huolioya smiled faintly and said, While you were quarreling, I already sent people to guard the dungeon. Who? Everyone was stunned when they heard that, and they looked around. Huolioya waved his hand and said, Don't look. This time, everyone in the Black Dragon group has to go. This can't be, right? Isn't it just a motley crew? Do we have to all go? Everyone was confused. As the saying goes, the law does not punish the masses. This was the same for things like merit. If everyone worked together to achieve something, it would not be called a performance. Chapter 1359. Us? Why? Hearing Huolioya's words, everyone was unhappy. Although the gains were minuscule with so many people, it was still meat. Now that they were not allowed to go, wasn't it clear that they were taking revenge? Although Huolioya was the boss of Saga City in name, he had been sent to such a remote area by the headquarters. Clearly, he was an existence that had been ostracized. Towards such a superior, no one was willing to accept it. Seeing Huolioya's despicable methods, everyone's faces tightened, as if they were about to rebel. Huolioya naturally did not dare offend his subordinates. Seeing everyone's expression, he quickly explained, Let the subordinates do the dirty work. You have more important things to do. Everyone quieted down and asked, What is it? In order to be absolutely safe, we need you to escort Carl to Yamatai. Huolioya replied. Carl's existence was very important to the Black Dragon faction. Huolioya did not know if Chuanjin's goal was to kill or save Carl. If a fight really broke out, no one could guarantee Carl's safety in such a chaotic environment. It was better to move him to the headquarters in Yamatai City. There were many experts there, and the Black Dragon faction's influence was spread throughout the city. It was definitely safer than Saga City. Then wouldn't it be more convenient for us to send people to escort him? Everyone asked in confusion. Those who could sit here naturally weren't fools. Everyone could understand Huolioya's arrangements. However, what they couldn't understand was that since they had already decided to move Carl, why not just let the main force escort him? Huolioya shook his head and said, It's easier for accidents to happen with more people. Right now, I will bring people outside the dungeon to distract them. You can quietly move the target. This will be safer. Oh! Hearing Huolioya's plan, everyone nodded. It was clear that everyone agreed with Hua Liuya's plan. After all, the more people there were, the bigger the target. This would reduce a lot of unnecessary trouble. Seeing everyone's expression, Hua Liuya struck while the iron was hot and added, "You are all the people I trust the most. You are all experts, so I will be at ease leaving this matter to you. Otherwise, why would Hua Liuya be the city lord? Just look at the way he spoke. One look and you could tell that he was a leader, the most trustworthy person, an expert." Originally, everyone was hesitant about whether or not they should listen to Hua Liuya's opinion. Hua Liuya's 2 words caused everyone's hearts to burst with joy. Without a second word, they expressed that they were willing to go through fire and water for the city lord. "Isn't it just escorting? Leave it to us," Hua Liuya gladly said. "Then I'll have to trouble everyone. Carl being able to move safely is all thanks to everyone. He was a man, after all, and he only wanted fame and fortune." Now that he had a compliment, Hua Liuya threw out the actual benefits. Everyone was extremely touched and said excitedly, "Boss is so considerate. We will definitely send Carl to Siamatai safely." Hua Liuya nodded and said, "That's good. Take advantage of the fact that they haven't gathered their people yet. Go and secretly bring Carl out. Let's move out now." Everyone responded and quickly left the office. Seeing his subordinates leave, Hua Liuya revealed a satisfied smile. From Hua Liuya's arrangements, it wasn't hard to see that Hua Liuya had some ability. There was only one share of the credit. No matter who it was given to, it would cause the majority of people to be dissatisfied. If he did it himself, he would be targeted by everyone. Hua Liuya simply withdrew and gave the credit to everyone. Not only could he make everyone speechless, but he could also win the hearts of the people. He could also free up his hands to do more meaningful things. It had to be known that from Hua Liuya's point of view, protecting Carl didn't have much meaning to him. Ruling Saga City was the most important thing. This was also the reason why he gathered all the players in the Black Dragon Guild to guard the dungeon. Although violence wasn't the best way to rule, it was definitely the most effective way. It wasn't hard to see that Hua Liuya's prestige in Saga City wasn't very high. Until now, Hua Liuya hadn't been able to find an opportunity to raise his prestige. Now that he had the opportunity, he would use suppression to tell everyone who the city lord was. According to Hua Liuya's instructions, Gu Lingwan's group left the office and went directly to the dungeon. Then they brought out a thin middle-aged man. This middle-aged man was the one that Wang Yu's group was looking for, Carl. Gu Lingwan's group was well aware of Hua Liuya's intentions at this moment. After they brought Carl out of the dungeon, they took a low-key shortcut and walked out of the city. At the same time, Baiming Yoyu from the Chuanjin Guild sent a message. "They have taken Carl away." "Beautiful." Wuji snapped his fingers and said, "Close the net." After receiving Wuji's instructions, the Chuanjin Guild that was gathering players in every corner of Saga City stopped their actions. Then they took out a sign and placed it in front of their newly recruited brothers. There was only one sentence on the sign: "Go to the dungeon to save someone." Originally, the players who were recruited by Chuanjin were still on tenterhooks. After all, everyone knew that the first thing these Chinese people did when they came to Saga City was to provoke the Black Dragon Guild. Therefore, everyone was prepared to offend the Black Dragon Guild. At this time, when they knew that they weren't going against the Black Dragon Guild, everyone let out a long sigh of relief. They were just going to the dungeon to save someone. As long as they weren't going against the Black Dragon Guild, what was a prison break? The players would certainly be delighted to do so. For a time, the players who were recruited by Chuanjin rushed in the direction of the dungeon from all directions. In just 10 minutes, the dungeon entrance was tightly blocked by the players led by Chuanjin. Such a high-profile prison break by Chuanjin naturally couldn't escape the eyes of the Black Dragon Guild. Hua Liuya, who was in the office, also received a message at the same time. "Boss, they are here." Hua Liuya calmly opened the friend list and asked Gu Lingwan, "Where are you now?" "Soon," Gu Lingwan replied. "I have seen the Evil Spirit Valley. Is safe along the way." Hua Liuya replied casually, then opened the guild channel and ordered, close the net. Leave no one alive. Huoya was a sensitive guy. When Xuanzhen's people were recruiting players, Huoya let the Black Dragon Guild follow up and observe. The dungeon was fully prepared, with a large number of experts lying in ambush, waiting for the target to appear. Chapter 1360. The Black Dragon Triad players were like dark clouds covering the sky. They instantly filled every corner, and the surrounding buildings could no longer be seen. Such a sudden ambush directly scared the mercenaries of the Xuanzhen sect silly. Each and every one of them stared blankly in place and put away the weapons in their hands. It was obvious that these players had a strong desire to survive in the face of the Black Dragon Triad, and they immediately chose to surrender. Of course, it was no longer important whether they surrendered or not. These players had successfully stalled the Black Dragon Triad's main force. Now that Bone Wan and his men had reached the Dark Spirit Valley, it was too late for Huoya to call back his troops. However, the Xuanzhen people would rather die than suffer a loss. They had already spent their money, so they naturally would not let these Japanese people take advantage of them. Throwing out a gold coin to see the white light of death was a good deal. Hee. Mingdu laughed in the crowd and raised his staff to throw a flame at the Black Dragon Triad players. At this moment, Bao Sen shouted, "Go kill them!" Whoosh! Mingdu's flame landed on the ground and took away a dozen lives in an instant. The Black Dragon Triad players were furious when they saw that these lambs still dared to fight back. Without waiting for Huoya's order, everyone raised their weapons and started attacking the mercenaries in the encirclement. It was a game, after all, and it was a game of revenge. No matter how cowardly a person was, it was impossible for him to not retaliate in the game. In the face of the Black Dragon Guild's attack, the mercenaries took out their weapons again and began to fight back. These mercenaries did not know each other, so they did not have any formation to cooperate with each other when fighting. They just pounced in all directions. The Black Dragon Triad had overwhelming strength on a mortal abode island, and the players below them had not fought many large-scale battles. Although they were in a neat formation, they were all newbies. With the mercenaries in chaos, the Black Dragon Triad players also became flustered, and their rhythm was quickly skewed. In an instant, the players at the entrance of the dungeon were in a mess. Everyone was fighting until they were dizzy, and they could not distinguish friend from foe. White light and screams filled the air. It was a very pleasant scene. In the sky, the Xuanzhen people looked at this scene with satisfied smiles on their faces. They then turned and flew into the distance. While the players in the city were in chaos, Bone Spirit Pill and his men escorted Carl to the outskirts of Dark Spirit Valley. At this time, Bone Wan and the others were in a very good mood. The Evil Spirit Valley was the headquarters of the Black Dragon Triad. Not to mention how much commission they could get from this escort. If the higher-ups in the headquarters were happy and asked them to stay in the headquarters, they would make a lot of money. What future could they have in a place like Saga City? Even an ordinary player in the headquarters was better than being a team leader in Saga City. But good things could not be good. Bone Wan and his group had just arrived at the entrance of the Evil Spirit Valley when an unfamiliar man appeared in front of them. The big man was tall and burly. He had a square face, a high nose, and a wide mouth. His eyes were like lightning, and when he looked around, he looked quite powerful. He also held a long stick in his hand and blocked the path of Guling Wan and his group at the valley entrance. Man Darkened Dragon King Kayat. Seeing this, Kayat Shim Kayat Dragon Triad. Seeing Demon and Demon. The person who could scare Kayat to such an extent was naturally none other than Wang Yu, the person who had annihilated Kayat's team in a single exchange. The Black Dragon Guild had always been fearless in Saga City. The players in Saga City had to respectfully hide when they saw them on the street. At this time, seeing that someone dared to block their way, they were naturally extremely unhappy. They pointed at Wang Yu and shouted, "Who are you? How dare you block the path of our Black Dragon group? Are you courting death?" Wang Yu didn't understand what they were talking about. He raised his stick and pointed it at Carl, then crooked his left hand. Wang Yu's meaning was very clear. "Give me Carl." Of course, the members of the Black Dragon Triad could understand such simple sign language. The group of people immediately became excited. Black Dragon Triad had been in Saga City for so many years, and it had always been Black Dragon Triad robbing other people's things. No one had ever dared to rob Black Dragon Triad's things, not to mention that Carl was related to their future, so they naturally wouldn't hand him over. "Umph! You blind bastard, trying to snatch our things away from us. Everyone, kill him," Guling Wan said as he raised his staff and began to condense magic. When the others saw this, they also subconsciously formed a formation. The tanks were in front, and the ranged soldiers were at the back. They drew their bows and arrows, condensed magic, and aimed at Wang Yu. Seeing this, Kiet quickly stopped everyone and said, "Everyone, don't be impulsive. I have already sent a message to the boss. The people in the city have been dealt with. He is rushing here with his people. Let's stabilize this person first. Don't make a move. We will die. As the saying goes, a fall into the pit, a gain in one's wit." Kiet had suffered a loss at Wang Yu's hands once and had a firm memory. However, even Kiet, who had really fought with Wang Yu, wondered if he was dreaming. Those who hadn't seen Wang Yu's means with their own eyes naturally wouldn't believe the so-called master in Kiet's words. Bullsh asterisk T. Gu Lingwan's body flashed, and a resistance ring of fire violently pushed Kiet away. Gu Lingwan turned his head and despised. "Do you think everyone is your group of useless subordinates? Send a message to the boss and tell him not to worry. We will take care of this kid." In fact, Gu Lingwan's thinking was not wrong. He was in the category of a normal person. The dozens of players present were all elite masters of Black Dragon Triad. Kiet's level was at the bottom of the group, and Kiet's group was even worse. With such a weak level, it was expected that they would be killed in a second. It was not a standard for combat power evaluation. At this time, whether it was quantity or quality, the people of Black Dragon Triad were far better than Kiet's team. With such a configuration, if Gu Lingwan still did not have the confidence to face one person head-on, and a mere Grandmaster of Combat at that, Gu Lingwan was afraid that he would not be able to hold his head up high. Besides, Saga City was only 10 minutes away from the Dark Spirit Valley. What if they really could not defeat this Grandmaster of Combat? There were dozens of them, and they could not hold on against one person until the main force arrived. As he spoke, Gu Lingwan finished condensing magic in his hand. He swung his staff, and an ice spear was shot first at Wang Yu. Ice spear. Chapter 1361. Bone Spirit Pill's magic was like a command. As soon as the ice spear appeared, the other people's attacks also left their hands. For a moment, the sky was filled with magic and arrows flying towards Wang Yu. Just when everyone thought that Wang Yu would be taken away in one wave, the next scene that everyone would never forget happened. The elite team of Black Dragon Triad had more than 40 people escorting Carl, and half of them were long-range professions. However, facing the attack of more than 20 people from Black Dragon Triad, not only did Wang Yu not retreat, but when he saw the opponent attack, he rushed towards the attack. The trajectory of arrows was much faster than the speed of magic, so the dozen or so arrows reached Wang Yu faster than the magic. Wang Yu did not dodge. He held the staff behind his back with his right hand, grabbed an arrow out of thin air with his left hand, and casually pointed several times in front of him. Dang, 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 dang. A series of sounds came, and all the arrows were knocked to the ground by Wang Yu. At the same time, the eyes of the Black Dragon Triad players flew out. Meow. These were more than a dozen arrows, but not only did they not hit Wang Yu did not stop moving forward and did not even slow down. What the hell was this before everyone could recover from their shock? The Bone Spirit Pill's condition had also flown to Wang Yu. Magic was not the same as arrows. Arrows were physical attacks, and as long as one had enough skill, there was no problem with reaching out and shooting them down. Magic was not only a metaphysical attack, but it also had various special effects. Naturally, Wang Yu did not dare to use his hands to block it. Moreover, ice spears like ice swords were magic mimicry skills, not ordinary magic that would explode with a touch. Even if Wang Yu took it with his bare hands, his arm would probably be pierced on the spot. Chain blockade. Just as the ice spear was about to pierce Wang Yu held the staff with both hands and blocked the ice spear. Then, Wang Yu pushed to the side and used shifting stars. The ice spear immediately changed direction, spirit piercing the rainbow. Wang Yu followed closely behind. He suddenly extended his long stick forward and pointed at the back of the ice spear. The ice spear, which was swaying and about to fall to the ground, once again received the force and flew straight towards Guling Wan. In the blink of an eye, the spells of the others had already reached Wang Yu. Wang Yu smiled faintly. His figure flashed and turned into a white light. Pu. All the spells missed and exploded on the ground, creating a colorful explosion. Wang Yu dodged the spells and flew to the front of the Black Dragon Guild players. That was why it was said that a coordinated attack was only visually pleasing to the eye. In actual combat, it was not as effective as a random attack. Seeing Wang Yu evade all the attacks and appear in front of the team, the Black Dragon Guild players were completely stunned. Especially Guling Wan. He was even more dumbfounded. His jaw dropped to the ground. At this time, Guling Wan's ice spear had already flown to Wang Yu's side. Wang Yu glanced at Guling Wan, who dared to attack him first. He shook his long stick and once again hit the back of the ice spear. After being hit by Wang Yu, the ice spear's original trajectory suddenly tilted up. Under Guling Wan's horrified gaze, the ice spear stabbed into Guling Wan's wide, open mouth. Poochie! There was a muffled sound. The ice spear pierced through Guling Wan and came out from the back of his head, stabbing into the ground behind him. With a flash of white light, Guling Wan was smashed into pieces. Voila! As Guling Wan turned into light and disappeared, the ice spear also shattered and turned into a cloud of blue mist. Wang Yu, on the other hand, charged towards Carl. Seeing this, Kiet and the team hurriedly shouted, "Quickly block him!" Hearing Kiet's shout, the Black Dragon Guild members trembled and recovered from their fear. They subconsciously raised their shields and formed a shield formation in front of Wang Yu. At the same time, Kiet had already mustered his courage and rushed to the front. He raised his middle finger at Wang Yu and used a taunt skill. Under the forceful pull of the taunt skill, Wang Yu was dragged in front of Kiet. Under the system's rules, even a ruthless person like Wang Yu had to obediently give in. After delaying Wang Yu, Kiet yelled out an order, "Shield warriors, take turns taunting him. The rest of you bring Carl back. Hurry! Run back." Hearing Kiet's order, everyone was stunned. These people had yet to understand Wang Yu's strength. In their instincts, since they had already pulled this kid back, they should just attack him directly. What was the point of running? But before anyone could object, Wang Yu, who had been dragged in front of Kiet, slightly leaned to the side and avoided Kiet's shield attack. His right hand withdrew the long staff and stabbed it into Kiet's face. Then, he took a step forward and stomped on the back of Kiet's knee. Bang! With a loud bang, Chiat, who had been forcefully holding on to Wang Yu, was countered by Wang Yu at close range, and he was instantly pressed to the ground. Wang Yu took advantage of the situation and stomped on Kiet's head with a thunderstomp. Kutcha! Lightning flashed. -150000. A huge damage number floated up, and Kiet was stomped into a white light on the spot. It seemed like Kiet was already prepared to die in close combat with a grandmaster of combat like Wang Yu. Masaka. At this time, everyone finally understood why Kiet wanted them to take Carl and run away first. No matter how mediocre Kiet's strength was, he was still a shield warrior. As one of the team leaders, his equipment wasn't any worse than the others. For such a thick-skinned fellow to have his brains smashed out with a single stomp, this was absolutely shocking. Let's go. Seeing how terrifying Wang Yu was, the others naturally didn't dare to hold any hope. They immediately dragged Carl and ran in the direction of Saga City. Right now, Huliao was rushing over with the Black Dragon Gang. As long as they were met, even if Wang Yu had the ability to see through the heavens and earth, it would be impossible for him to take Carl away. Of course, Wang Yu also understood the thoughts of the Black Dragon Gang. Seeing that they wanted to escape, Wang Yu frowned and was about to chase after them. However, the surviving shield warriors of the Black Dragon Gang had already arrived behind Wang Yu. One of them raised his hand and pointed a middle finger at Wang Yu, taunting him. Wang Yu was once again pulled over. When Wang Yu was pulled to the side of a shield warrior, the other shield warriors raised their shields and used shield bash on Wang Yu's body. Bang! Wang Yu, who was hit by the shield bash, suddenly exploded, causing the shield warriors to sway slightly. Meow, it was doppelganger explosion. In the blink of an eye, Wang Yu had already activated his Qin Gong and flew directly above the escaping group. The defeated army had no formation to speak of when escaping. The Black Dragon Gang only cared about running back, and the distance between them had already unconsciously become a group. In midair, Wang Yu let out a shout and activated his blazing flame steps. Following the activation of his true Qi, a dark red flame wrapped around Wang Yu's legs. Immediately after, Wang Yu's figure suddenly descended and used Eagle Stamp. Chapter 1362. Boom! Wang Yu's entire body was wrapped in dark red flames, and he fell heavily into the crowd. Most of the Black Dragon Triad players who ran back were long-range professions. Even if they were not, they were assassins. In short, they were weak. Wang Yu had a full set of godly equipment, and his attack power was already heaven-defying. Now that he had activated Burning Flame Steps, the damage was needless to say. As Wang Yu fell from the sky, a circle of white light of death lit up beside Wang Yu. With this 1 foot, more than half of the people were trampled to death. At this time, Wang Yu was like a demon in the eyes of the Black Dragon Triad players. Seeing Wang Yu catch up and trample so many of their teammates to death, the Black Dragon Triad players' hair stood on end. They dragged Carl and ran in all directions. All of you come back! Wang Yu roared, leaped up, and used Flaming Tornado Kick with a swing of his legs. Flaming Tornado Kick Flame Enhancement. Flaming Storm. Flaming Tornado Kick was an upgraded version of the Grandmaster of Combat's Tornado Kick. It could use powerful flame power to attract surrounding hostile targets to its side. It was a common skill used by Grandmasters of Combat to gather monsters. Regardless of the attack power, this group effect was definitely a necessary skill for short-range professions like Grandmasters of Combat. Under the enhancement of Burning Flame Steps, Flaming Tornado Kick was strengthened into a more powerful Flaming Storm. Not only did it greatly increase the attack power, but it also greatly increased the absorption range. Wang Yu's figure turned in midair, and he immediately turned into a crimson firestorm, and the flames spread in all directions. The Black Dragon Triad players had not run far when they felt something pulling them from behind. They involuntarily retreated and were instantly engulfed by Wang Yu's flaming storm. In the flames, white light appeared one after another. The Black Dragon Triad players were all beaten into ashes by Wang Yu. The few shield bearers from the Black Dragon Triad had also caught up to Wang Yu's side. Looking at the mess at the scene, they were stunned and completely lost their will to fight. These guys had been in Saga City for so long, and they had encountered all kinds of situations. However, this was the first time they were beaten to the point where they did not even have the courage to fight back. The shield bearers had lost their fighting spirit, so naturally, they lost their murderous intent. Wang Yu turned around unhurriedly and glared at them. He was obviously asking, "Are you still coming?" The others also understood Wang Yu's meaning and hurriedly stepped back, shaking their heads and waving their hands to show that they were convinced. Wang Yu pointed at Carl and gestured. "Then, no one has any objections if I take him away, right?" No, no, no. Seeing this, the others shook their heads like a rattle drum. What a joke. Those who didn't let Wang Yu take Carl away were already dead. Those who were lucky enough to survive naturally knew what to do. Farewell. After saying that, Wang Yu extended his hand and slapped out. The cloud-seizing palm pulled Carl before him. Next, a pair of pure white wings spread out from his back, pulling Carl up into the sky. With a flap of the wings, he quickly turned into a black dot, disappearing into the horizon. It was not that Wang Yu was soft-hearted to leave these shield bearers alive. It was just that it was a waste of time to kill these guys with thick skin and many control skills. When Wang Yu and the Black Dragon Triad were fighting, of course, it could also be said to be a massacre. Wu Ji had already sent a message to Wang Yu, asking him to end the battle quickly. Of course, Wang Yu would not waste time on a few guys who did not dare to fight back. Why do people prefer to fly when their qing gong or mounts were faster than flying? It was because flying in the sky did not have to worry about obstacles and routes. Wang Yu carried Carl with one hand and flew all the way across Saga City to the port at the highest speed. At the port, the people of Chuanjin were already waiting on the ship, and the people of Black Dragon Triad had also rushed to the beach under Hua Liuya's leadership. It had to be said that Hua Liuya really had some tricks up his sleeve. Knowing that it was too late to go to the Dark Spirit Valley to rescue them, he simply took drastic measures and rushed to the beach with his people. It had to be known that Saga City was much closer to the beach than to the Dark Spirit Valley. After Wang Yu snatched Carl from the Dark Spirit Valley, he had to return to the beach, which was a long distance. Of course, Huliuya would not think that he would not be able to stop Wang Yu. However, just when Huliuya thought that he could kill all of Chuanjin in one fell swoop, Wang Yu suddenly flew over all the people of Black Dragon Triad and flew above the ship. Wings were extremely rare even in the Heroes continent, and the players of Immortal Sanctuary Island had never seen them before. When they saw someone flying above their heads, they thought it was an NPC and shouted, "What is that?" Hada! In the air, Wang Yu loosened his grip and Carl fell to the deck. "It's Carl." Seeing Carl on the deck, the players of Black Dragon Triad were shocked. These people did not know Wang Yu, but did they not know Carl? Huolia pointed at Wang Yu's ship and ordered, "Attack that ship. Snatch Carl back. Raise the sails." Wang Yu casually snapped his fingers, and the huge sails on the ship rose. The whole ship moved without any wind and slowly sailed in the direction of the Heroes' continent. "Get on the ship. Chase." Seeing that Chuanjin was about to escape, Huoliuya gave the order to chase again. The players at the front of Black Dragon Triad took out their ships from their pockets and threw them into the sea. This was the biggest difference between reality and the game. Although the ship was simple, it was still a tool to carry people. It was very strange to casually take one out of one's pocket. Chuanjin's ship was powered by the system and belonged to automatic transmission, so it was relatively easy to start. On the other hand, the Black Dragon Triad ship was powered by human power. It was a true manual transmission, so it was quite fast to start. Wang Yu's ship hadn't gone far when the Black Dragon Triad ship caught up from behind and surrounded Chuanjin's people. Hua Liuya raised a paper loudspeaker and shouted in front of Wang Yu's ship, "Friends from China, I know some of you can understand our language. Hurry up and hand over Carl, and I can guarantee that you will leave safely." Wang Yu and the others were enjoying the breeze on the deck. When they heard Huoliuya's voice, they couldn't help but ask Bao San, "Santa, what is that bastard saying?" Bao San said, "He said that he has already surrounded us and wants us to hand over Carl. Otherwise, bullshit." The Chuanjin people said in disdain, "We gave him face, but he doesn't want it. Ram him." Following the order, Chuanjin's ship suddenly began to speed up and ram into the Black Dragon Triad's encirclement. In China, there was an old saying, "A mantis tries to block a chrysanthemum, mayflies try to shake a tree." It was used to describe people who overestimated themselves. Clearly, the Black Dragon Triad people were the mantis and mayflies. Wang Yu's ship was a little broken, but it was still a freighter-class ship. The Black Dragon Triad ship was at best a lifeboat. Under this absolute suppression, it didn't matter how many they had. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.